from the time that I got there and signed as a songwriter and a producer, I was 21 years old. I was at the office all the time. One of the ways that I would always get these opportunities to produce certain things was because I would because I didn't have anything else to do when when I wasn't in my hotel room working on tracks. I would let me just go hang out at the LaFace office, and I would sit in the lobby, and it was like this would happen like at least 3 to 4 times a week. LA would come walking through, and he'd be like, "Yo, what's up, Tony? Hey, want to get some lunch?" See, because nobody knows never hit number one in the US. We hit number one in the UK.
Wow.
And the reason why we didn't hit number one in the US was because of Celine Dion.
Was that the Titanic?
No. You remember that song, Because You Love Me?
Okay, okay.
From
Wasn't
the movie Up Close and Personal?
okay because yeah, okay.
So David Foster,
David Foster.
David Foster, I believe, called my manager and
Wow.
said, we're about to take that number one spot.
Mm.
So when I was presented with, oh, they offered me a job. I'm a grown man. I can't cry about that. I have to just figure it out. And that's what I did, because I assure you right now that me as a person, as a creator, I'm probably 1,000 times happier and more sound of mind than most of the people I was around back in that time. I live my life in a very creative way, and I do what I do my art, I do my music, and it's great.
Hey guys, I want to welcome you to my second part of my interview with Tony Rich. We covered his upbringing, his journey into music, moving to Atlanta, and we're going to see where we can get to in part two.
When I first started at LaFace, and we were doing so LaFace had this, they were superb at artist development. Okay. So when it came down to like imaging, they prepped you for interviews. And luckily for me, I only had to do one interview coaching class, only one, because there was this guy named David Nathan. He was just really good at, and what he covered was like, okay, always remember to repeat the answer. I will repeat the question in your answer. And I said, why is that? He said, because when you do interviews, oftentimes they use sound bites. So you don't want it to be where you're just answering a question and nobody has a clue about what you're talking about, right? So I was like, all right, cool. So we went through it. He taught me how to address rumors, how to talk about rumors, how not to talk about it, blah, 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 all this stuff. And at the end of it, I was like, so when's our next session? He says, no, I think you're good to go. And so from that point on, my interviews, of course, I ran into interviews over the years, especially like in Germany, maybe one or two in the UK, but where I would get someone who's interviewing me and they hadn't listened to the music, they didn't really know much about me. They were just sent by that publication.
Mm.
And I would always turn those interviews into some really cool conversations. So I'll be like, look, you don't even know my music. He's like, no. I said, all right, let's just talk then. Right. So then I'll start telling him what I do, talk about what he did or whatever. So what happens is that when I start talking about experiences, sometimes I have the tendency to speak to a person as if they understand this timeline that I'm speaking in. Because sometimes I can place things, and that's what so I start to notice. I was like, oh my God, I was answering questions that you hadn't even asked yet, right? And which, even though you're not scripted, still you had those in your mind. So I'm just mindful of that, and that's why I told you, trust me, it's going to flow just like it flowed the first time.
Okay, okay.
I
Yeah.
do this every night.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't do interviews. It's all conversations,
Yep, I agree.
and my my timelines are okay. At least there is when you got signed, you release of your albums, but it's about the story
Yeah,
between those things and things like that. But
yeah.
yes, I mean, how far back do you want to start from?
Wherever you want to start from.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
you You want to start from the beginning? You can. I got time.
Yeah, no, for me, I think I think the part that I do want to start from is actually when you were recording um that transition from being a producer to becoming a recording artist, because I think that was the way we kind of rushed it,
Yeah.
kind of went like, okay, I did some production on Boys Men, and it's time to make the record. And I thought, wow, that's because I do wonder what it, do you not see the fame and what these guys are going through and think, actually, I'm at the back, I'm making money, I'm doing,
Yeah.
I'm actually producing, creating music. Why do I want the hassle of becoming a famous person as well?
Well, okay. We'll start there. That's good. And another thing is, I always like to make sure that even when I'm especially when I'm speaking of other people, I like to make sure I'm accurate, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we can just go off our perspective on things, but I like to make sure I'm accurate. But I will say this, because I never had a desire to be famous,
Mm.
when I decided to do my artist thing, quite honestly, when you're working with other artists, it's kind of I didn't really get a clear picture of just how crazy it can get
Wow.
when you're the artist
Mm.
and now you're facing all those things. Because when you're the producer songwriter, you just kind of get to know these artists when they come into the studio.
Mm.
Very rarely where you might have an actual friendship with, like, say, your label mates or whatever artist you're working with, right?
Yeah.
And like, because as long as I was with LaFace, I wasn't like buddy clicked up with any artist on LaFace. I was cool with everybody because everybody was cool with me, but it wasn't one of those things where you could, you kind of get this insight because it's an excellent question of like, okay, why would you want to be in that position in the music business, knowing that the artists most of the time are at the bottom of the totem pole, even
Yes.
though they're the ones that's presenting the art, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, but that was the thing I noticed about myself was that I didn't really have a desire to be famous. I just wanted to see what it's like to make a record and
Okay.
have no interference or disruption from anybody outside of myself. That was the whole goal, right? So when I
Okay.
told LA I wanted to do an album, he says, "Man, just do it." So I had that freedom. So no one was breathing over my neck at all. And then what I did was, I will give you this tidbit, but this is a person that played a very, very pivotal role. So what I did was, right before I decided to do my own record, when I presented 4 demo songs to LA, I just said, "Hey man, I'm thinking about doing my own record." He said, "You should do it." So he took the demos and he was playing it for different people in the office. And at that time, DJ Eddie F was there as
Mm.
he was doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eddie
Yeah.
F had been brought in to
Yeah.
do, he was working in the A&R department. So it was him and 2 other people in the A&R department. So LA played 4 of my demo songs that were, mind you, these songs had been recorded on 4-track tape. They were just my home demos. But he played, and everybody was just like, "Yo, who is that?" Now, mind you, most of the people at the LaFace office, before knowing me as a songwriter and producer, they just knew me as Tony Richards. I was the guy that would come up to the office and bring donuts to the junior staff and stuff like that.
Oh.
I would just hang out with the staff all the time, right? So, and I would always tell them how much I appreciate them and things like that. So he said, "Y'all know this is Tony, the kid that's always in the office." Eddie F said to LA, "Well, if you don't sign them, I'm signing them." He said it like that. So then things got to moving, and it was and so once everybody put 2 and 2 together, it's like, oh my God, because they already liked me as a person because I was up there, I was always like intermingling with everybody. And so that's how that started. It came upon, like, I was just curious. That's it. I was just curious. I'm like, let's see what it's like to make an album with no interruption. And I didn't have any interruption at all. Like I had like good 3 to 4 weeks of solid just in there, just making a record. without no interruption.
But you said that did they not know that you're the guy who did was working with Pebbles that did Boys to Men? Did they not know you did
Not like
stuff?
that. No, no, because it wasn't like because up until up until I did words as an artist. So basically, once I became famous or whatever you want to call it for being an artist, I also became that for being a producer and a songwriter. So all that time that I spent working on Tony Braxton, Boyce Men, all that, I was still relatively unknown.
Oh,
Nobody
and
knew my
within the LaFace office, I mean, because he says this is Tony, but you gave the impression that you were just hanging around the office. But I thought they at least that they knew you were producing some of the artists as well.
yeah, they knew that. Yeah, but it's
Okay,
just like what I told it's like what I told you last time, where each project was sort of assigned to a particular producer, and
yeah,
then they get extra songs from other people.
okay,
So they knew me, they knew that I was a songwriter and producer, but I didn't get like the light shined on me
oh,
until
like Dallas and
work.
Jermaine. Okay, yes. So those are
Yeah,
the main guys, and so okay, and then because you were up, were you more approachable? That they didn't see you as the big star
right.
producer that comes in and that stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a good point. I was very approachable because I approached them. There was
Mm,
nobody had to approach me because you got to understand from the time that I got there and signed as a songwriter and a producer, I was 21 years old. I was at the office all the time. One of the ways that I would always get these opportunities to produce certain things was because I would just some because I didn't have anything else to do when I wasn't in my hotel room working on tracks. I was like, let me just go hang out at the LaFace office, and I would sit in the lobby, and it was like this would happen like at least 3 to 4 times a week. LA would come walking through, and he'd be like, "Yo, what's up, Tony? Hey, want to get some lunch?" Sure. So I would have these impromptu lunches and meetings and things. And in those conversations, oftentimes he'd be like, "Hey, you want to work on such and such?" Yes. I never said no to any production opportunities. That's how I got Boys to Men, Tony Braxton, all that stuff. Even when it came down to remixing a TLC song, was the same way.
what made you decide? Because I doubt many. I think some producers or artists take on the persona as a big star before they've got there, so they wouldn't you wouldn't see them sitting in a lobby like, no, I need to, be in the studio and away. So what gave you that thinking about, let me make myself present?
Well, the way I saw it was I'm here, like I'm in Atlanta to work.
Mm,
Right? So if I don't have anything to do, if I wrote some tracks in my hotel room, I'm kicking it around, like, let me just hang out at the office. I just saw it as if I place myself there, I might get more opportunities than if I
right.
stay away, hidden in the studio.
Mm,
So I did both. Yeah, I was a studio rat at that time, but I was also a person that go hang out at the office. And even check this out, even after releasing the album, going platinum, Grammy winner, all that. I would still go to the office and hang out with Steph. I did the same thing I always did.
mm,
Because I knew those people, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It wasn't like there was like a lot of like a there was never like a huge turnover of
yeah,
new employees. No, it was you were dealing with the same people. And it was also a very short span of time
yeah.
because I was at LaFace from 93 to I left there in like 99, I think when I left. But I got there in 93. We didn't release. Got there in 93. I recorded Words December of 94. 95, we spent the whole year doing artist development. So I was traveling back and forth to the
Okay.
UK, Germany, Amsterdam, working on things, doing video shoots, photo shoots. And then we released the album January 16th, I believe it was, of 96.
Okay.
So that was a very short span of time, but I did a lot in that time.
Yeah, but you did two albums. So yeah, I mean, I think you were there for what, 7 years or 8 years, but that's
Well, from
93 to
93
19
to 99.
to 99, yeah, 6 years. Okay. But what was Joe doing when you were coming to the lobby, the office?
Listen, man, me and my brother Joe are like two sides of the same coin. So that means what? Whatever my brother is not interested in, I am, vice versa. We flip it like that, right? So when it came down to dealing with the business aspects, my brother was not someone who was what do you call it? What's the best way to say it? Joseph wasn't up to the politics at
Mm,
all, right? And quite frankly, I wasn't either but I knew that, hey, one of us has to do this. Like one of us has to get up there and talk to people and mingle and stuff like that, right? I
yeah.
wasn't, neither one of us are really like big people, but I had to learn to be. And
Okay.
so that's all that was because I would go and even still to this day, whenever I'm working on anything musical, I call my brother, hey man, I'm working on such such, you got anything? So that was our system. It was like my brother was my protector in every other realm. I was his protector in the music business.
Okay. So when you go into the office and hang, he will be back making the
He's
music and
working on music.
okay.
Like
Okay.
even right now, still to this day, my brother is at home working on music.
Okay.
He's just passionate about it. It's like the music business part of it, that never concerned him, you know.
Yeah.
We were both. I can honestly say we both always had this really really keen passion to create music, whether people heard it or not.
Yeah.
It's just that we happen to do something that a lot of people heard, and then that can change some dynamics. But I just never ever forgot how much I just love creating music. Even still to this day, me and my brother will still have these discussions about being excited about some new piece of equipment. And he always talks me into buying stuff that I don't necessarily need. I'll never forget he called me a while ago and he's like, yo, he says, yo, man, you gotta check out the new Akai MPC Key 61. I said, bro, you already talked me into getting that MPC X. I got the X. So what's up with this key 61? Then I find out it's the same thing with the key. So first thing I did was like, yo, Tim, what's up with this MPC Key 61? Tim's like, yo, bro, such, I got you. I was like, okay, what's going on? Man, we can't get them in because of chip problems. It was funny, but we were all just still very excited about equipment. I love that.
Uh, what did you, because that's how that, because you spent a whole, yeah, I think you said it took about 3 or 4 weeks to record the album over the Christmas,
Yeah.
but it took about a year just to get you as an artist prepped. What was that like? Because it means that you're not creating music, you have to be very, you have to learn new things. What was that 95 like for you?
1995 for me, you're going to love this because this was hilarious. 1995 for me was, I was going through, um, I was still creating a lot of music.
Okay.
Okay. So in between traveling overseas and doing things, I was still working on music. Matter of fact, in 95, I recorded most of Bird's Eye in 95.
Wow.
Because I remember telling the label that my first single for my second album was going to be Silly Man.
And
They're
this
like,
is
what? This is before I released Words. I was always recording music because the artist thing allowed me to do something that I wasn't able to do with making songs for other artists, which was to be extremely creatively courageous.
Mm.
I could just do certain things and I could write these lyrics that were coming from a very personal space and not have to, you know, see if this person can relate to it as an artist. So it was like a 95 was just a mix of me doing music, um, photo shoots, wardrobe styling, and things like that. Just trying to figure out what it's going to look like because the sound was already there. Also, rehearsing for my first live performance professionally. So there was a lot of that's a lot of rehearsing and
Mm.
getting ready for that. And what else did we do? We didn't shoot videos in 95. No, yes, we did. We shot two videos in 95. Shot two videos for Nobody Knows. The first one just didn't make it because it
Oh,
didn't showcase me well. So we reshot it in Miami. The first one was shot in Toronto, Canada.
and who takes the hit on the first one?
The label and the artist.
Okay.
So what it was that, and so in '95 we're doing artist development. Where I'm sitting down going through books and video reels to see if we want to pick a director. And we picked this one director, and she was really dope. But her storytelling didn't necessarily capture me as an artist. It was two
Mm.
things. It didn't capture me as an artist, and I had a chipped tooth at the time,
Oh.
right, from when I was a kid. And on camera, it would just your eyes would just gravitate to that when you did see me, but you hardly saw me in that video. So what we decided to do, I was sitting with this build, the video. This guy he's a director, but his job in LaFace was he was like the liaison between the label and the video production company that would shoot your video.
Yeah.
And his name Billy Woodruff. So
Oh,
I said
Billy
to Billy,
Woodruff.
yeah. So I said to Billy, he said, so who we gonna get? I said, you shot a video before, right? He says, well, yeah, but he was a little unsure. I said, you should just shoot it. I trust you. So Billy directed my first video, for real, for real. Because I was just like, man, I don't see how it's that hard. If you've done it before, you should do it. And so that's why we wound up coming down to South Beach and we shot the Nobody Knows video that everybody sees.
Oh,
But
does
that was,
does LA say, oh, what does any objections from, because it's, cost them money for them to agree on Billy. I think because I mean, he's gone on to become, music director and other things. But at that point in time, you took a risk, a chance with him. Doesn't
I
the
did.
label say, oh, wait a minute, are you sure about that?
Well, I'm pretty sure that there may have been someone unsure, but I don't think most people look, Billy was very well respected,
Mm.
right? And the reality was that Billy had shot videos before, but that wasn't his job at the label. So what I said was,
Okay.
well, you've done it before, so and I didn't even need to see anything that he had done. I just trusted Billy.
Mm.
I used to call him Billy Wood. Because Billy so Hollywood, he'll be the only person sitting in the marketing meetings with sunglasses on in daylight. Billy was an artist. It's like this. Billy was the unofficial. He was an unofficial artist on the LaFace roster because he was Hollywood, bro. And he would come in. He knew what he was doing though. And so when you look at that video, and then from there, that's how he wound up doing Usher's "You Make Me Wanna."
Yeah, that's an iconic video
Yep.
with the
So his
colors and everything. Yeah.
so his video career really took off after Nobody Knows, as far as
Did,
like shooting videos.
does he ever give you props and said, "Man, you open the door for me," or what is? Does that ever come up?
I, I don't know. I don't know if he does or not because I'm not in conversations when people are talking about that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I've seen plenty of interviews of people from LaFace doing like I don't hear my name mentioned, so I don't really mention anybody's name really unless I really like them.
I think before we go further, it does seem because when we think of LaFace, there's always this TLC, there's Usher, um, Outkast,
Hmm.
um, maybe Pink that comes in. I
Hmm.
think Shanice for a while. It does. You don't seem to be. If Cause if we could still poll, okay, how many people can you remember on LaFace? I don't know how many people might. I don't know if you were given that sort of opportunity to be like one of the poster childs for LaFace. Was there a reason why you think that when because LaFace people, I don't, I think sometimes it's like, oh yeah, Tony Rich, yeah, he was on LaFace, but I don't think many people remember. Did you ever find that? Did you have a different experience?
Well, the thing is this, right? There's a lot of different ways you can rewrite history. You can write something different, or you can not mention certain things at all, right? So let's just say you have a book and you're gonna do a revised version of that book. And in the
Mm.
revised version, you just don't mention certain things you mentioned in the first book. Whoever buys the latest book doesn't even know you ever said that in the first book because they don't have the first book. So it's kind of sort of like that. And I don't know the reason behind that, and I really don't care because what it was that what I knew for a fact is that all of us as artists we were all having different experiences as artists at the label. Everybody was experiencing different levels of success.
Mm.
Everybody was being treated differently. Everybody, like not everybody had the same creative freedoms. Like I had a lot of creative freedom for a long time until it wasn't. But that's the thing I could say. It's like it was a beautiful era of time.
Mm.
I was glad that I have no regrets for being on that label at that time because it was just what we did. But what I know is that at that time when Maxwell, D'Angelo, so D'Angelo was first, right? This was right after Dion Ferris.
Mm.
See, Dion Ferris was a great pioneer for D'Angelo, Maxwell, and myself as far as preparing the industry for what was to come, as far as the kind of music that we were all individually doing, right? So you had Maxwell, D'Angelo, and myself. We all three of us sounded distinctively different,
Yeah.
but we were on three different labels,
Mm.
right? And so, and of course, at that time, everybody wanted one of those, right? So I remember at one point there was this artist by the name, I think his name was Myron, and he sounded extremely similar to D'Angelo. And then you remember Rasan Patterson?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He came out right after Maxwell.
Okay.
But Rasan has a totally different kind of voice.
Yeah.
But it seemed like marketing wise, because they had like, I think when he first came out, he had his hair kind of big like
Yeah,
Max.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm like, yo, no. Rasan is a whole totally different type of vocalist. That guy's extremely talented. And whereas Maxwell is a totally different vibe too, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And who was it? I'll never forget. God rest his soul. It was Lou Silas called LA and said, "Yo, you know that Tony Rich project stuff? I'm about to copy that." And it was
It was who?
Jesse Powell.
Ah.
Jesse Powell's first video. He's in a bathtub, fully dressed,
Oh.
just like I was. You know, so but that wasn't Jesse's doing. That was Lou, because Lou loved what I did, what we had done with Tony Rich Project so much. He's like, man, I'm about to copy it. So it was like it was a really interesting space to be in. And so what happens is no matter what you do as a creative is there. How people talk about it is you have no control over that, whether
Yeah.
they you or not. So I don't care about that at all. It's just that when I do hear my name mentioned, all I'm listening for is accuracy,
Yeah.
is to make sure that okay, that's right. Or but if it's something I wasn't in the conversation, I can't say anything about that. I wasn't there.
Yeah. I think just to think about it, because with the Usher, TLC, Outkast, they became real big, I would crossover hits because they went from R&B to sort of pop. So
Yeah,
hence they probably got a lot of push and a lot of light,
yeah,
more so than say Goody Mob, who was also on the face. But I think at the time when you came out, we did have um labels were investing in I think Kadar comes up with this whole neo soul. So we
yep,
are finding, Chico DeBarge goes to Motown, and
yep,
we are getting men who are able to be self-contained in a way,
mhm,
play an instrument, sing, and just vibe out. And people just, and then we had Love Jones, an amazing movie. So
yeah, yeah,
there was a time where everyone was just into that vibe. And I don't know if labels were looking for you guys to make a lot of money, because if they already had a TLC and an Usher bringing in most of the revenue, we can give you guys a space just to be creative and get the Grammys. Was that the type of freedom you think you might have had, that you can do your music and be as artistic and creative as possible, and there's no pressure to sell 20 million like Usher or TLC?
No, listen, let me tell you something. Back in that era, it was always pressure to sell millions of albums.
Wow.
In fact, at that time, 500,000 wasn't enough. That wasn't good enough. You know what I'm saying? Usher did 500,000 on his
The debut
on the
album
that album that was produced.
with Devontae and Tuffy and
Yeah,
yeah.
that album did 500,000, and he was close to getting dropped because of that. Like,
Wow.
because it wasn't platinum, right? So the pressure was there. That's why I look at artists these days. I'm like, you just don't realize how different it is. It's like you're dependent on streams. We had to sell albums, you know. And it was funny because once you learn the formula, it was like it was. I remember it was an amazing thing to figure out. Like, how do they determine when you're going to go gold or when you're going to go platinum? Because they base it off of the number of units of physical CDs that you were selling per week.
Yeah.
So if you're selling like 80, 75 to 85,000 albums per week, not 85,000 streams, you're selling work, okay?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're selling that, then they can project, oh, you're going to be platinum in 6 months
Mm.
or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a totally different era of time.
Mm.
And I was just, I was always really, really glad that I was um, one of the fresh faces that was doing something that wasn't typical to what you were hearing at the time.
Yeah.
So for me, with me being on LaFace, because my album wasn't necessarily an R&B album,
Mm.
it was kind of weird, you know, because that words fell in between genres a lot. So even when I would go to, like, say, Tower Records, sometimes it would take me a minute to find out where do they have my album placed, because it wouldn't be in R&B, it wouldn't be here. It's just like, what is going on? But I remember that was a discussion that we had before putting the album out, that this is probably going to fall in between genres, because there was no two songs that were on there that was solidified, like, oh, it's this genre. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? You got Nobody Knows is a country record. You know, Missing You was sound like some folky stuff. Then you
Yeah.
had, like, Hey Blue sound like something that Donald Fagen or Steely Dan would do. And then you had, like, Little Ones was like some David Bowie type stuff. So I was all over the place, but there was continuity because it was my voice threaded throughout. It was
Mm.
my production threaded throughout, even though
Yeah.
from track to track it could be different.
Yeah.
Um, and then what I loved about D'Angelo and what I loved about Maxwell was that when I listened to their music, I was just like, man, I never would have thought to do that. And so my respect for other artists is always, when I hear something I would never think to do, I respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did does Clive get involved? Well, how does he get involved when you are, because you said he wasn't really feeling it at first and nobody knows, but does he get involved in, like, okay, are we sure about this album? Or is LaFace, sorry, LA does everything and he just has a call with Clive to say, we're just putting this out, or
You know what? I don't know, because see, the way that the labels were set up at that time, so you had BMG, which was owned by, well, Arista was owned by BMG.
yeah.
Then you had LaFace that was co-owned by BMG, but LaFace was under Arista.
Yeah.
So what it was that certain things had to get the green light from Arista for LaFace to move forward. Like
Mm.
when we wanted to reshoot the Nobody Knows video, that wasn't that wasn't a good day. Like that, LA had to, he had to fight. He had to fight for that, right? And it was one of those things where Clive wasn't feeling it because his focus was on Deborah Cox, right? So he wasn't thinking about me. He was just like, hey, you want to shoot another video? You pay for it. He's told LA, you pay for that. I'm not doing that. That's black country stuff. What am I supposed to do with that? That's what he said. He's like, this is what am I supposed to do with that? It's black country music. So, and that was just based upon one song, right? Like a Woman wasn't a country record. Leavin wasn't a country record. You know what I'm saying? It's like Grass is Green or Under Her Spell. None of those were country records. Like, but I understood where he was coming from. But because it just wasn't something he was focused on.
Yeah.
And so in LaFace, each artist received their individual attention when it was their time to launch off.
Okay.
So it was at LaFace, they never, whenever they tried to do it, it would be disastrous. If they tried to launch two artists at the same time, that was disastrous. No, but as long as they did one at a time, they were able to focus.
Yeah, and actually that's actually what you do need. That's what sort of the boutique labels were good for, was the artist development, the package of care,
Yes.
and making sure the whole machine was behind it.
And also standards.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, look, I can't say enough good things about the school of LaFace Records because everybody was held to a high standard. You had to have hits. There was no album fillers. They didn't
Mm.
believe. No, 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 no. They wanted when we would play songs when you got to the point where okay, it's time to listen to the album. Every song needed to be very, very impactful. That was a good thing. When it came down to the production level, we had extremely high standards of record making.
Mm.
So you just couldn't get away with it. And it's things that you can't like undo or forget. It's just what it is. It's just like my brother taught me a lot about song structure and harmonies and things like that. Being at LaFace in that era, I learned how to fine tune my production. I know little tricks that can take a song and make it sound like $1 million. It could just be one instrument and things like that. So I learned a lot about finalizing production from LA. Taught me a lot of things about that um, just by watching him do his thing. When chances I did have to see him program drums on something, I
Yeah, I
was
was
just
gonna
like,
say because when we think of the LA and Babyface, his drums. I mean, when I interviewed Daryl Simmons, he had nothing but praise with LA's drums. And you think about it, whether it's "Don't Be Cruel" or the stuff with Karen White or with
mhm,
Whispers, it was very distinctive drum patterns. Then you had the lyrics of Babyface and Daryl with the harmonies, but the drums for that LA brought into the
yeah,
production. Was he ever anxious to get back into production, especially, or the business was just taking up too much time? So, especially when you guys were working on Voice to Men, he shows up and leaves it.
yeah. Look, I couldn't, I can't, I didn't live in his head like that,
Yeah.
but I was around him a lot. And I will say that when it came down to, hold on, what was your question again?
No, but the fact that you worked with him and because you talked about what you learned from him, the production side, did he
Oh, we
ever,
talking about the drums.
yeah, but did he ever feel like he wanted to, did you ever feel as if he wanted to get back into, because he could make records, but he was a business
Yeah,
guy.
but you know what? This is what I will say. He was sort of like weaning himself off of it.
Okay.
So the time that he spent in studio when I was producing Boys to Men, and the time he spent in studio when um, I was producing
Tony?
Tony Braxton,
Mm.
and then there was a time we produced a record on um, Elton John and Sounds of Blackness. All right, that was like those were the only times he was actually in the studio like that. Like for let's say for Boys to Men, the song I Sit Away and I did on Boys to Men. When I first recorded that record, I didn't record it for Boys to Men. I was recording for my own album. Actually, I just hadn't said anything that I want to do my own album. I was just like, this would be dope. Because that song, again, is about my father. When I played the demo for LA, he's like, man, I gotta put some drums on that. I was like, word? I said, ooh. Because that was my first chance to actually see him program drums. So
Oh,
he comes in, when he comes in the studio, all I know is they wheel in this this rack system, right? I'm like, what is that? It was some stuff I had never seen before. The brand was called Forak, right? And it was this box that had all these drum sounds in it, right? And so when he got to programming the drums, I'm in awe because as he's programming, it sounds like a real drummer playing it. So I
Mm.
was like, oh, that's it. And then I remember a drummer that played drums for me when I first started doing live shows. I remember he did the same thing. So from the two of them, I was looking at how they program drums. I said the reason why when they program drums, why it sounds like a real drummer, because there's certain things they do that real drummers do because they're real drummers.
Yeah, Ellie, yeah, yeah.
Like if you're doing a tom roll, there is no way in the world you are sticking that hat. You might pedal that hat. So I started to think about things like that. And then by the time I'll never forget LA coming to me and it's like, yo, those drums on Like a Woman? I said, what? He said, it's just one little section. It was this one section where it's like some rock, rock, he loved that because he's a drummer, right? So he
Yeah.
listens to in that way. And it's funny because at some point I got this drummer and like I want to say from my third album on, I started programming more closely to how he played.
Wow.
So to the point where so when he would hear what I recorded, he would go, is this one of the songs we recorded live? I said, no. He's like, you program that? He said, why does that sound like me? I said, because I program like you play now.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, but Ellie never said that he was itching to get back to it. He was really, really focused on being a record man. Like he like running the labels. He wasn't really interested in far as what I can tell, he
Mm.
wasn't producing a lot of records at all.
Yeah.
Anything that anybody that came to him wanting him to produce something, he just handed it to me. So
Okay.
that's how I knew that he wasn't really interested in doing that anymore.
What was the transition to being a performer? Because all this time you were the songwriter, the producer, networking around. Now you're going to stand in front of an audience and
Yeah,
perform. It,
yeah.
that's a massive leap when that
No,
wasn't.
it's insanity. It's insanity. And I will say that the producer songwriter in me was like, what is this? Right? It's a totally different world. And I used to tell my brother all the time, like, bro, you just don't understand how easy you got it. Where you could just sit at home or sit in your studio and create the songs. I said, I love that too. It's a whole nother monster when you got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, so you could make an 8 o'clock in the morning flight. Like, look, I used to get these calls like once Words was going and we were promoting and we were inching our way up the charts on Top of the Pops, right? And we would get these calls on like a Sunday night that I need to be there the next day. Otherwise, I wouldn't get my number one spot. See, because Nobody Knows never hit number one in the US. We hit number one in the UK.
Wow.
And the reason why we didn't hit number one in the US was because of Celine Dion.
Was that the Titanic?
No. You remember that song, Because You Love Me?
Okay, okay, it
From
wasn't
the movie Up Close and Personal?
okay because yeah, okay.
So David Foster,
David Foster.
David Foster, I believe, called my manager and
Wow.
said, we're about to take that number one spot. So what it was that Because You Love Me, every time they played a commercial for the movie Up Close and Personal, they played Because You Love Me. And every time they play that, that was considered a
What?
BDS spin. So it entered at number one. But I had no problem with it. And the reason why I had no problem with it, because I was like, Nobody Knows entered the Hot 100 at number 100. And we moved all the way up to number two. And we were postured and positioned to go to number one Celine Dion came in and said, number one. You know what was crazy? We never dropped below number five. And at some point, they just took it off the charts. So what happens is if a song doesn't leave a certain position, they move it to what they call recurring. That's what happened with Nobody Knows. Nobody Knows was not going anywhere. So they had to move it out of the way so the other songs could have a shot.
Wow. So
Yep,
why would
that's why
they?
we did number one. But yeah, that the transition to being an artist was interesting because I didn't, you gotta understand, I had become comfortable in my seat of being a songwriter producer. So I didn't know what I was about to encounter as an artist on a professional level.
Mm,
But I was like, yo, because it's a lot more work that has nothing to do with music that you
yeah.
have to do.
Mm,
And that's where you have to like balance it because that more work that you have to do has more to do with you connecting with your audience.
mm,
So once I realized that there was a certain number of people that love what I did, and it was and because I read every piece of fan mail I ever got. So
wow.
once I was getting that feedback, I was like, okay, okay. Then I realized what I loved about being an artist. It was the service of me. It was the process of me writing these songs, channeling these songs through me to get them recorded. Like the act of recording a record for me, that's for me,
Mm,
right? Then once I'm done with this, like, all right, cool. All right, now we click into business. Just make copies and we sell these copies. Because then at that point, I'm done. I'm done creating the art. Now it's time for me to share, right? So then once that happens, then you get feedback. And I'm reading these letters and people talking about how this song, like what blew me away was this, in essence, was that as an artist, my voice, my words, my melodies, my music was going places, affecting and meeting people in places that I have not yet been to
mm,
in some cases, and in some cases I may never go.
mm,
But the music is there
mm,
and people are feeling connected to me through that, right? So I was just like, the idea of that was a very beautiful feeling because it's like, wow, this is good. This is much better than a lot of jobs that some people
yeah,
might
yeah,
have.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I create music and then it goes places that I have yet to go. And so that was amazing to me. And it made me think of the first time I went to South Africa. My music had been playing there for 20 years and I'd never been there. But when I get there, I'm like, yo, no, these people feel like they really, really know me because I'm doing autograph sessions for 3 hours after each show
Mm,
because I'm bringing every album I had done up until that point. This was up until Exist. So I'm signing all these
wow.
CDs. So that was beautiful to me, and that's what I still love about the artistry thing, and that's what I know that not all artists might see it that way, but a lot of them do. It's a special connection to people that you may not ever even meet.
Yeah.
You know.
What type of performer were you then? Were you the one that needed a guitar or piano to calm the nerves while you're performing? Or because you weren't, I doubt to be like Neo, or Usher who did all the dancing and backflips and stuff. But so did you feel like you needed a comfort zone? Let me get an instrument alongside me just to, so I can just calm my nerves because I can't imagine standing in front of 20, 10, 20,000 people and singing if that's not if I've always been behind the scenes. Now there are others who have been singing since they're five and doing shows, cases
Yeah.
here. So it's an easy transition. Okay, just a little bit more people. But you were coming from not, that wasn't your background,
Mhm.
performance wise and talent shows. Now you're thrust in. How, what kind of performing artist did you think you became and how did that change over the years?
You know, it was like this. Prior to that, my first performance. professionally. Look, when I was growing up in Detroit, I would play keyboards in a band. I didn't have to stand out front, you know what I'm saying? That was sort of tucked in the back. But I've always thought it was ironic because, especially at that time, as much of a, or the lack of being a people person, here it was, I chose to do something that puts me on stage in front of other people. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick little short story about Kenny Lattimore because this was hilarious. So Kenny Lattimore was hanging out at a couple of my video shoots, but he wasn't Kenny Lattimore yet.
Oh,
He was just this cool kid that would be hanging around, right? And so fast forward, Kenny Lattimore is now Kenny Lattimore,
never
and
too
I am
busy.
first, right? And we were on the same show. We were doing this show called Verses and Flow, and it was Amari Hardrick was um, he was the host, and then so it was these poets that would do this poetry, and then they would have a performer for each episode. So
Wow.
this particular day, they were shooting episodes where I was the performer and Kenny Lattimore. So me and Kenny were standing, we were sitting backstage, we were talking because we hadn't seen each other in a while. And he said to me, we were talking about being on stage, and he was saying this thing that he does with the mic stand because he says, Tony, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my body when I'm on stage. I said, no, I get it. That's why I always play an instrument because look, you take Adele, take Whitney Houston. You can take certain artists. They can stand flat foot, not move. Luther Vandross was the same way and blow you away.
Hmm.
Okay, if you're not that kind of vocalist, I'm not that kind of vocalist. My music is all about all of it, the vocals and the music, everything. I'm not about to stand there and sing a cappellas. That's not about to happen. So what it was that over time you figure out how to navigate a stage.
Hmm.
So this was one of the things that we did in '95 in that artist development period before Words came out, where I was rehearsing and I was figuring it out. And I remember my first show, I spent 95% of that show sitting on a stool. I was playing guitar.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think I played keyboards. No, I don't think I played keyboard. I may have. No, I did. I played keyboards once, a couple of times. But then after that, I would do a mixture. I would sometimes play keys, I'll play guitar, or there was like certain songs where I would just stand at the mic. But I
Hmm.
hated it. It just didn't. No, it's just like I'm like, what am I gonna do with my body? Like, 'cause I don't have no dance. I don't have anything else to do except play an instrument, singing to this microphone. So I figured out my way, and that way was to have a band that was so dynamic that you wouldn't give a squat about me
Hmm.
not dancing or whatever. So that became the charge for us was, and I would go out on stage and I would say this to my band: look, man, everybody out there knows nobody knows, but they probably don't know anything else that we're going to play. So let's just go out there and give them a great performance, and it's not going to matter if it's their first time hearing it. And that's what we did. That was it. It was just go out there, kick ass, and hope nobody take it personally. So then we started to form a reputation of like, do you remember that artist Jason Mraz?
Yes, 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 yes. I can
I think
picture
he had
him.
that song, Where All the Good People Go.
Mhm. Yes, yes, yes.
So I remember this had to be this was a long time ago. This had to be maybe 2000, 2001, something like that.
Mm.
And I got a call about someone asked it was a show opportunity in Atlanta, and it was opening up for Jason Mraz. And my whole thing with me and my band, we didn't care about who goes first thing. Our whole thing was just like, yeah, that's an opportunity to play. Let's play. Because
Mm.
every time we performed, it was an opportunity for us to get together and do what we love to do, which is to play our instruments and sing these songs. And so I said, sure, yeah, we'll do it.
Hmm.
Man, once Jason Mraz found out who was opening up for him, he said the word came back. that, and I don't know if he said this, this is just what I was told by my people at the time. Uh, they opted out. The word was he was not about to follow me. So I sent the message back. Well, he can go first. It doesn't matter. We just want to play. Never happened. That's happened a couple. That's happened a couple times where they find out that I'm going to go first. They're like, mm.
Did you have a steady band that you kept
Yeah,
for?
yeah.
Oh,
I had a steady band from '98 on. So for my first performance years was '96. So for '96, '97, I used well, it wasn't my idea originally, but it was the label actually, because I had put together a band. Then we had a show that didn't sound wasn't too good. It didn't go over very
mhm.
well. And so at that point, that's when the label was like linked me up with a music director, and that was Chucky Booker. And so Chucky at the time was putting together bands for people. Chucky was like back then. Chucky was like Adam Blackstone now.
Okay, yeah,
Have you
okay.
noticed that whenever you watch any award show, anything, Adam Blackstone?
Yeah,
Matter of
he's
fact, me and Kenny did the Verses and Flow. Adam was the music director. He just know he that was Chucky Booker for a long time. He just knew how to pull a band together and have them tight. Where as soon as you get into rehearsal, you just singing, right? So I used Chucky for about a year, and then I reformed and put together a whole new band. And that's who, like, I still have some of the same guys. Like, I have the same drummer I've had since '97, '98.
okay.
Same drummer. And then now my brother Joe plays keyboards for me, with me, because I play keyboards as well. And then I have this bass player named Eric. And then and so what I do is I alternate between guitar players. I have a few there's my options for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think because one of the concerts I've been to when I lived in Milwaukee was Mint Condition. And,
Yeah.
and I always said that when they played, it felt as if just like you listen to them on the album, that's how they are live. And I've very rarely seen anyone match that. So I do wonder then if that's the reputation you developed, where if you as a musician, songwriter, singer, and then you have a band that you're really connected with, if that's the experience that people are getting, I can imagine where people might be thinking, okay, they're putting on an authentic show. We need to be mindful of what we're doing afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's true because I always knew going out on stage, I always assumed this. And I was clearly wrong in South Africa. I was. But and a lot of times I was very confused as to um, what was it. So get this. I go to South Africa. This was like maybe 2009, 8 or 9. And I have two shows lined up at this theater. And when I walk out on stage, well, no, my drummer was walking out on stage because I needed to check something on my keyboard. And so I'm kind of walking behind him. And it was funny because before I left out of my suite, they said, "Hey, they said we have security for you. We have a car for you." I'm like, but wait a minute. Every day we've been here, we've been walking down to the theater because it was a casino hotel and a
Hmm.
theater. So we walked through the casino and walk into the theater. They're like, no, 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 no. You have to go a different way. I'm like, no, it's okay. Trust me, it's all right. I'm here. My feet is on the ground. The people know I'm here. I'm just all. They said, no, you don't understand. You need security, you need a car. So they literally walked me out of my room, down the elevator to the garage, put me in a car, drove us around the other side to the back of the theater with two security guys, and then we walk in. And I'm like, I don't know why they tripped. So when I walk and creep out on stage to see what I need to do for my keyboard, it's people start cheering and screaming. The whole building is rumbling. I'm thinking, did Michael Jackson just walk out on stage? Like, I don't understand why they acting like this, right? It was a full house. Both nights it was a full house. And then when we did and then once I realized, I was like, oh my God. It was like because that was a concentrated number of people that were there to see who was on stage. It wasn't like a festival, right? A
Mm.
festival is just like they're there to see whoever's on stage. But when it's concentrated like that, I was like, yo, that was a really intense moment. And they knew every single song that I did. They were even
Mm.
calling out songs that we did not rehearse to play, but I was still playing because I knew them on keyboard, right? But it became, and so the first night you learn like your limits or your lack of limits as far as what you can do on stage and how you can entertain the people. So the second night was even better, but I recorded all that stuff. But it was like I just remember as a performer, after that, I come back to Atlanta and Albie Shore he was doing like a little intimate show at this cool lounge up the street from me. But he'd say, hey man, bro, you come by. Like, so I went by and he called me up and I went up on stage and sung Nobody Knows. And it was quiet as a church mouse. It was quiet. Nobody made a sound. And I was almost confused. Like, wait a minute, I just left South Africa. These people lost their mind. I could barely hear. My ear was popping for how loud people were, right? And here I was, I'm sitting here in the city where I live. And it's like, these jokers are quiet as if I'm not even up here doing anything. But then I remember Boys to Men. I remember when I run into Sean Stockman at the Grammy Museum. I said, bro, how y'all been, man? He told me, bro, we had to eat some humble pie. I was like, what happened? He says, man, at some point, we found ourselves performing at a bar with a bull in the center, like a riding bull. I was like, what? He said, yeah, man. He said, after that, we just went overseas. And he said, it blew our minds because we thought we were done. But what we realized is that, no, in America, people's attention spans are really, really short when it comes to music. So they get over things fairly quickly. But overseas, they never forget, ever. So that was interesting to me.
You know, it's a lot of my guests have said they've been really impressed by how they come to Europe around and they get a lot of love. And they say, yeah, we don't really get that back home. And it shocks us because it's like, what? You know, you did all this stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know if it has changed recently. Because I think during the 2000s, there were probably the tensions were turned. I think there's probably, I would assume, since the pandemic, there has been a lot more of an appreciation for sort of 90s R&B acts, or 90s artists, where there is, I think when the New Edition tours and all these tours are going on, there's been a more of an appreciation. But there must have been a time then, I guess, in our 2000s where it's like, okay, you guys were yesterday, we're moving on. And I can't imagine how that must have been like, especially were you still signed to a major if this is happening or
No.
okay.
At that time, I had a partnership with Hidden Beach when I was over doing South Africa. So it was different. It's a different machine when you're working with a label that's more independent, so to speak. It's a little different. They navigate differently. But you're right when it comes down to like 90s era artists are now considered legacy artists. Anything before the year 2000.
Mm,
What happens is a lot of legacy artists, anybody that put a lot of music out in the 90s benefits more from as bad as streaming is for the bottom line for creators of music,
mm,
still anybody that put music out before the 2000s probably makes more money than new artists, anybody after 2000.
mm,
And the reason being is because of all of that catalog music from the 90s.
yeah.
Because when I'm online and a teenager comments on one of my songs that someone else has posted on their YouTube page, I'm also, oh my God, this song means so much to me, blah, blah, blah. And you find out that they're 15 years old. And you're like, you were not even born when this song, but YouTube and the ability to discover
Yeah.
music. That's the difference now. It's that all of this 90s R&B, any music from the 90s is
Mm.
being rediscovered by kids of this day and
TikTok.
age.
Yeah, that was a TikTok
I
viral
love it.
vid. Yeah.
There it is. And that's the thing about it's like one of my really good friends who's a fine artist. His name's Anthony Liggins. When we talk about art, because I'm in that world now as well, his whole thing is always just keep producing, brother. And I've always said that to music artists that were younger than me. Just keep creating. Don't worry about when you're going to release it, how you're going to release it. Just keep creating it
Mm.
because one day somebody's going to discover it. And if it's good, they're going to know it's good. But
Yeah.
keep creating because it's good for your soul. Like I create music still and I do art. It's all for my sanity, bro. It's like I have to do it. It's like, why would I sit on talents and not figure out a way where I can make it to be something that is therapeutic for me and very calming for me at the same time I can earn a living from it.
Yeah.
All I know.
Yeah. I mean, but that it's a gift, and especially when you go back to when you started and told the journey about, it you saw it and before it was in existence and you kind of moved towards it. So then you don't think you've reached the summit and like, well, that's it now. I can just retire. This it's still in there.
Yeah.
When you get nominated for the Grammy with Nobody Knows, do you get a call from Clive? Congratulations for was
No,
Black country music artist. So
no. You know what I got? This is how I found out. And this was really, really interesting, bro. Like, because my manager at the time, his name was Mark, and he was like, this dude he did stuff. He was able to make some things happen for me that I'll never forget this one. He says, so I'm coming back to around to the Grammy because all of this has everything to do with it. So the way I found out about the nominations was I just got back in town. I think I was coming back from the UK, and I go to the office, and there's somebody in the one of the junior executives handing me a piece of paper, and it was like a colored piece of paper, like a green or a neon yellow or something, and it listed the nominations. It was 4 nominations, and I remember looking at it, and be like, "Oh, cool!" Folded it up, put it in my pocket. And the reason why I wasn't really thinking about it because I didn't make the album and say like, "Yeah, I'm gonna win a Grammy for this album." That wasn't what I was thinking. So I looked at that like, oh, okay, cool. But I remember at some point when we shot um, Nobody Knows video, the second one, and my manager at the time said we were in New York City, and he said, "Hey, we gotta go to this meeting." But he didn't really tell me much. He was very vague. That's how he was, though. He wouldn't tell me much. And I don't know if it was his way of like of being afraid that I was gonna say no or some whatever. But he was like, eh. So what he did was he says, I remember we go into this building. We went to this penthouse, and we walk into this apartment. It's like the ceilings look like it was like 25 feet ceilings. We're at the top of this building, and then this older white fellow comes out, and my manager's talking to him. Then we played a video for him, and the meeting probably lasted 20, 30 minutes. Then we was out of there, right? So then fast forward, here we are. We're in think I was touring with at the time. I think I was just finishing my tour with Mariah Carey, I think. And so we were in Paris. Yeah, it was the end of the Mariah Carey tour. So my manager says to me, he says, "Hey, do you remember that guy's apartment we went to in the penthouse and we should play the video?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that guy was the guy who produces the Grammys. It's Pierre Cossette." I was like, okay. I'm still not understanding why he's telling me this, right? Because he was always vague. He wouldn't really go into detail about certain things. I'm like, okay, what about it? He says, "You're performing on the Grammys." I said, "How is that when I don't have nominations?" Because if you don't have a nomination, you're not supposed to be on that stage.
Mm.
And that's not like it's not like you breaking the law. That's just typically how it is.
Yeah.
So when we get to LA for the Grammy, and it was time for us to rehearse. I said, so what do you mean I'm performing? Like, what am I performing? He says, you and D'Angelo are going to do a tribute to Stevie Wonder. I was like, word? I said, all right, that'd be cool. What's the setup? So me or D'Angelo don't know what's going on. We walk into this room, they slap some sheet music in front of us, talking about this is how it's going. I'm like, I can't read that. I don't read music.
Oh, you
Just
don't
play
read music?
D'Angelo didn't read it either. I was like, just play it for us. And the guy who was behind all of those duets, right? His name was, I'll remember it. Anyway, he said, listen, we're going to Ken Ehrlich. That was his name.
Oh yeah, Ken Ehrlich. Yeah,
Ken
yeah. We Are the
Ehrlich
World.
won
Yeah.
for all of those duets that you've seen on the Grammys.
Yeah.
He put those together.
Yeah, he did We Are the World. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, he put all that together. And he said, okay, this is what it is. When they lay it out to us, I'm like, so wait a minute. You want us to play two different things, sing two different songs on top of each other. And then we're going to transition into another two songs. We're playing two totally different things and we're singing two totally different things, but in the same key. Kind of like this. So we rehearsed it, just two of us. And we probably did that for about 20 minutes and that was it.
Wait, so this is the day of the Grammys, not like a
No,
month
this is the day before.
Oh, did they? Wow, that's kind of
Yeah,
short
we
notice.
didn't have no rehearsal time. No. It was just a run through. We ran through it. Okay, cool. The next day, camera blocking, making sure that you got your sound run through. Okay, boom. Lights, camera, action. And you know what they told me right before I walked down on stage? They're going to say, oh, just so you know, you're performing in front of, I think it was like 3,500 people in the audience, but it's like 50 million people are tuned in. I'm like, thanks. So I'm like, so then we knock it out. Now, that was the year before I was nominated. So the year, that's why he said, when he said that, he said, hey, I got you on stage. So then the following year, I get the fax and it's saying what my nominations are. And I was like, ooh. So I did my first interview about that. And the woman said to me, so you think you're going to win? I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to win. I'm not leaving empty handed. She goes, really? You confident? I said, look, I got 4 nominations. I'm at least taking one of them home. And so, I kicked myself in the ass after I won. I was like, I should have said all 4. But I knew I was going to win. And the one that I wanted to win was the one that I won. I did not care about winning Best New Artist because winning Best New Artist does not change your career, does not change your producer rate, none of that. It's just whatever. I didn't want to win for one song, which meant Like a Woman or Nobody Knows. I kind of knew I wasn't going to win Nobody Knows. Why? Because my boy Eric Clapton was in that category.
Mm.
You got Change the World with Eric Clapton and Babyface on it. Just leave that. But Best R&B Album, I was like, I was never embraced as R&B.
Mm.
But I'm Black, so I know that's why I'm in that category. But I'm up against Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite.
Oh.
I'm like, I want that one. Why? Because it would be awarded to me, the artist, and me, the producer. That would change my career. So I won that one. And when I won that one, I was like, then I got kind of nervous because I was like, what does this really mean? I know it's going to change my career, but in what ways? I was being realistic because I'm like, because right after I won, it didn't feel all that positive. Like I didn't feel a lot of positive energy around me winning. So I was just like, okay, this is kind of weird. Then I started to notice that when people wanted to work with me, they would be a little hesitant because you're a Grammy winner now, so they probably think you're going to charge too much.
Mm.
People, when you're working with different artists, once they know that you're a Grammy winner and you've sold millions of albums, is like, a lot more intimidated. It was just weird. Like I didn't really see all of the beautiful positive energy around winning. And because there's no guarantees that come with the winning other than the fact that, okay, people are going to now refer to you as Grammy Award winning, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But it doesn't guarantee nothing. It's like, it doesn't mean that people have to pay you more. They can if they want to. But winning a Grammy, that Grammy win only means something to someone that it means something to. You know what I'm saying? If they don't want to work with you, they don't care if you were like a Grammy winner, but it was, and then I started to notice how it was just really interesting. The whole Grammy thing is an interesting phenomenon anyway, because at some point I went and visited the LA chapter, and I was able to visit and see the evolution of the Grammy Award itself, like what it looked like back in the day and what it
Mm.
looks like now, and just looking at all these different, like they have like they formed a department that actually cracks down on people saying that they won a Grammy when they didn't.
Mm.
They actually have a department for that. And I was like, really? They said, yeah, yeah, because we realize how much weight it carries and the leverage that people can gain by being that. So then I just started to notice that all my friends that were Grammy winners, we would never really talk about it. But then everybody that was be saying they weren't.
Mm.
So if anybody, the thing about it is, if you ever interview someone, and they say they won a Grammy, say, hey, can I see it?
Yeah, but I think it made it like think about someone like Cuban Junior
Yeah,
wins an Academy Award, but it doesn't change him for the best. So I guess yeah, so
but there's no guarantees.
I guess
It
yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't guarantee that. It doesn't guarantee that, oh, you're going to get more work and you're going to be paid more. No,
Who sets that? Was that you or your manager or the
this is the thing. You know who deserves the credit for producers getting like these wild astronomical amounts of money to produce a record is my boy Narada Michael Walden.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Whitney Houston and
First one,
Aretha
first
Franklin's.
super producer to charge that kind of money. And then from there, Jimmy and Terry, and then LaFace, and everybody they start charging that because Narada was the one that set the standard for that.
Wow.
And then, but I understood the game in a very, very different way. Getting a big producer fee didn't really mean anything. It was all about how much of it was recoupable. So if you had to like, so I figured out ways, and like I said, I've told you before, where I had this female attorney that just taught me a lot of different ways how to navigate. So I knew how to charge a fee in a way where it wouldn't be recoupable against me. I had strategy. I was very, very, very smart with that. And so it then became a thing where I was picking and choosing who I wanted to work with. I didn't work with everybody because I was just like, I had to go. It was a thing. I was being very, very honest. I wouldn't just produce anything or anyone that wanted to pay me to produce. I was very, very choosy about projects, especially after my album, because I didn't have as much time to be.
Okay, the timing, yeah.
Yeah, and I also wasn't interested in making other artists sound like me. Was not interested in that because then you lose your sound. Next thing you know, you don't even sound like yourself anymore. So I was not interested in trying to go and put a whole bunch of nobody knows on everybody because then it's not special anymore. Anybody can do it. It becomes washed up and it's like whatever. And I would tell people, and they're like, you know what? I said, I can't do that. I said, because you have to understand, nobody knows came together. The inspiration behind it, my father died.
Mm.
My brother decides to write a song about that. And then I heard it, fell in love with it. Say, bro, let me do this. I want to produce it on my album. you have to align all of those things there for it to really, really come across that way, right? And the thing about when songs hit you like that, it comes from a very genuine place. So to reproduce that would be rather hard.
I think I remembered what listening to an interview with Teddy Riley saying that Whitney Houston wanted him to do a no diggity type of record for her, and he didn't do that because he thought they couldn't recreate the sound because it was unorganic how it came, and we all thought, well, you know what, just make the music. But listening to what you're saying is that sometimes you just, there's a set of magic you have, you just can't just make it like that. I know
Yeah,
other producers like say the Neptunes or Timbaland have a production pattern that they sort of replicate and say, okay,
yeah,
well, I'll tweak here and that, but and then you're writing a song, but we're just giving you some different drum beats. But when you're coming up with a song that has that's it has a meaning, you can't just give it to somebody else. They've got to
right.
live that experience.
Have you ever noticed that, like with what I've always loved about Jimmy and Terry as producers was is that oftentimes it was hard to pinpoint a Jimmy and Terry production.
Yeah, that's true.
Hard, man. They would produce stuff, you'd be like, what? They did that? It was
Mm,
always a surprise. Then you have other producers that have more of a signature sound, where when you hear it, you know it,
mm.
right? Um, like when it came down to LA and Babyface, the one song that surprised me that they produced was Rocksteady on the Spinners.
Sorry, Whispers.
The Whispers. I'm
Mm,
sorry. Yes. That shocked me. I did not know that because, but then when I listened to it, I was like, oh, I can hear it now. But at first, I did not know that. Like back in the day when I first heard it, I did not know that was them. Right?
yeah.
I was like, you couldn't have convinced me. Oh, these are the same guys from the deal. No, I could not have thought that. But then over time, whereas you had with Babyface, he had a formula. So you go from himself to Whitney Houston to Tony Braxton to Bobby Brown, whoever, there was a particular sound.
Mm,
You could take any of those artists and place them on any of those songs, and it's going to sound great. He
mm,
had a formula, and then he had more of a breakaway with the Day album, where it was a lot different than things that he had done. And some artists are just like that, or writers and producers. They'll have this signature sound that they can just place it on people
mm,
and it works. And then, but at some point in time, you look at it in history, it washes out your sound. And then the next thing you know, now you got to come up with something totally different because you
mm,
can't do that anymore because now you have other producers mimicking that same thing, right? And that's part of the problem. It's like if you have a sound, keep it contained. Like when you look at, let's say, Timbaland. Timbaland did a good job with Missy Elliott and Genuine, and who else was
Aaliyah.
it?
It was Aaliyah.
They had, when you think about it, there was a tight little knit
Mm,
of a nucleus between them, but he wasn't putting that. Like when he did stuff with Jay-Z or whomever, it sounded different. It was
mm.
different on people, but within his nucleus group of Aaliyah, Missy, and Genuine,
Genuine.
it was a sound. It was like a movement of sound, and that
Mm,
was a dope thing. It's sort of like TLC with Dallas Austin. Take Dallas out, TLC doesn't have a sound like that. He
mm.
gave a sound. Everybody else would just kind of sort of add some hits.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
More of that was there, just like with Teddy Riley. Um, Bobby Brown's solo record wouldn't have been what it was without Teddy Riley and LA and Babyface.
Yeah.
Nah, he needed those two. Janet Jackson needed Jim and Terry
Mm.
because they gave it was just the songwriting that was so awesome.
But then when you win the Grammy, does does Clive come and say congrats because you've given us, well done for that today. Does that earn respect for the label, from the label Arista BMG?
Well, I would say this. At the time, Strauss Zelnick was the head of BMG North America.
Mm.
Strauss had great respect for me. He
Wow.
was sending gifts. He was sending gifts all the time. At every milestone, every time I sold records, he would send a gift.
Personally,
It'll be
wow.
something like, I think the last gift I got from Strauss was he sent a plot of grass. It was for a house party, but it was called a yard party. And so the that he sent to everybody was a plot of grass for you to plant in your yard.
Wow.
Now, but when I won the Grammy, LA was ecstatic. He was through the roof.
Wow.
For every artist on LaFace, whenever we achieved anything, it was it was time for celebration. They celebrated all those milestones, and you felt and you really felt the support when you were winning.
Well done.
That's how labels are. When you really winning, you're gonna feel the support.
Mm.
When it doesn't go so well, you're gonna feel that too. When it doesn't go well, it's all your fault.
Wow.
It is what it is. But it was like I don't ever recall Clive giving me a congratulations for winning the Grammy. I remember him congratulating me for when Nobody Knows got to #2 in America.
Oh.
Yeah, but other than that, no, I didn't interact with a lot of the Arista people like that because
Mm.
I didn't live in New York. I wasn't there like that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Okay.
I saw Clive on 2 occasions, and like I said, and Kenny, I saw Babyface twice. The person I would spend time around that I would be
Was-
like, oh, I know this person. It was LA and Perry and
Yeah.
all them. But yeah, everybody else was just kind of like out on the outskirts like that.
Yeah. I think we touched on it briefly last time, and this was more so when Kenny called, well, LA called and passed you to Kenny. He says, "Yeah, don't try and
Oh
sound,
yeah, yeah.
try and
That
sound
was
more."
a, that was an interesting call because what it was that this is what happened. We were I was done recording the album. We were getting ready to I'm already like halfway through artist development stuff. And it's time for the launch. We're getting ready to go to radio, right? And so what happens is that LA has one of his gifts is his back in that time was he just knew what a smash was, right?
Mm.
He knew what a smash was, and he knew when you were done with an album and when you were not. Case in point, Toni Braxton was convinced that the Secrets album was done. And at the time, she did not have Unbreak My Heart. She
Mm.
didn't have that. She didn't have You Making Me High.
Wow.
And she didn't have that R. Kelly produced song. She didn't have
I
none of
love,
those.
okay, yeah.
And she said she was done. LA said, no, I don't think you're done. I think you need some more. So he just had this gut feeling. And what was that? What was I saying? Um,
So this we're getting to the call from Kenny and how we.
yeah. So he had that knack. So
Mm.
when it came down to that about Nobody Knows, he was like, I think what it was that Kenny wanted to be involved somehow because once they split as
But
producing part, they did not split as label co-owners.
mm.
So Kenny was out in LA. He wasn't really involved in anything that was going on in Atlanta until it was time for him to produce some records. So like let's say TLC was getting ready to finish their album. Kenny would listen to everything, then he would send them some, baby, whatever it was. Whereas he would take more of a lead with Toni Braxton, but with everybody else, it was different. So it was one of those things where when I came into the fold at LaFace, I came right after they split up, but I didn't know nothing about that. So I didn't know what was going on. I just remember I come in and he likes how I produce and blah, blah, blah. And so once I did the album, like when you look at the back of the album, it says executive producer My album was the only album, Words, it was the only album on LaFace that said executive produced by Antonio L.A. Reid. There was no Kenny because he was not involved with that at all. But based upon their contract, their company structure, the people that were supposed to be listed on every record as executive producers was L.A., Kenny, and Daryl.
Mm.
That's why Daryl's called Silent Partner, because he was one of the partners of LaFace, right?
Mm.
And the so when LA called me, he was like, "Yeah, man." He said, "Yo, Kenny wants to talk to you." I was like, "Oh, oh, okay, cool." I didn't know what for because I was so used to just dealing with LA. Like I was used to dealing with LA. I would see Daryl a lot too, but I never saw Kenny. So I was just like, by this at this point in time, I never met this man. I never spoke to him on the phone,
Wow.
but he wants to speak to me. And the first thing comes out of his mouth is, "Hey, I was thinking, you could do a song like Nobody Knows. I just want to make suggestions. You do a song like Nobody Knows, but with a little more black, something like what Lionel Richie would do." And I was a little confused by that. And the reason why I was confused is because LA was through the roof about the song. Everybody at the label was through the roof about the song. People at Arista, it was just like nobody had made any comment that this song wasn't good enough to go with. So I didn't understand where he's coming from. So I said, "Are you saying that you want to work on it? You want to do a song for me?" He said, "No, no, it doesn't have to be for me. I was just making a suggestion." I was like, "All right, cool, thanks, man. I appreciate that." And that was the end of the call. So we never worked on anything together, but that was where he was coming from. And then I remember further on, I was in Sweden at the time doing a performance, and I got a call from LA, and he was saying that Kenny was upset that his name wasn't on the album. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know.
Wait, you're not responsible for that, are you?
No, I'm not. And I'm like, we just sold damn near 2 million albums already. Like, I don't, because I wasn't at that point in time. I didn't know all of that. What would how their agreement was set up, where his name was supposed to be there. I didn't know because the way I was seeing is that whoever works on things should be credited for it. I'm like, you were the person that told me, "Go ahead, do your record." When it was time to sit down and sequence the record, you were the one sitting down with me. When it came down to selecting the songs that we were gonna have on the album, it was you and I sitting at the kitchen table. When we sequenced it, it's like, so I didn't understand why he was offended because we had never met. He had no involvement with my projects. So I just didn't get it. And that was that. It was really weird, man. But hey,
Yeah, I mean, after that call, what did you take from it? Did you feel that there was tension? From your point, how did you interpret
oh
the?
no, I didn't feel it was anything other than I just thought it was strange because I was like, it's a great song, right? I don't get it. That's it. All I could take from that was that's why I asked him, like, do you want to like work on a song together or something? And he's like, oh. And then I remember a time after that when it was in between it was before Bird's Eye came out. Because it was actually I was in New York for the year that I won. And Strauss was having a pre-Grammy party at his house. And I think Kenny was there. Yeah, that was the first time I ever saw Kenny in person. And but we didn't really say much. But I think it was after that he had mentioned at that time, I think, about us working on something. And he might have an idea that he hasn't finished or whatever, but nothing came of it. And that was that. It's like there was a lot of people I didn't get to work with, and he was one of them.
Yeah,
We just
but
didn't get
but
to. Yeah.
you didn't have a conversation with LA to say, look, well, why, does
No,
Kenny like me? Or there was none of.
no, because I, I never got that idea. I remember Nobody Knows was out, was doing well, the album was doing well. And I'll never forget that I was going to the LaFace office and I was parking my car. And LA called me. He says, "Yo, so what's up?" He says, "You influenced Kenny." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Check out his new album, The Day." So when I go and listen to him, I'm like, what is he talking about? But what it was, he was talking about the subject matter. It was all about like, because that was an album that Kenny was talking about. He was more reflecting on his kids and stuff like that. And what he was saying that the influence was that it was a more introspective record as opposed to the stuff that Kenny was more known to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, that Tender Lover album is a fucking classic,
Mm.
right? And all of those songs are love songs. And you know
Mm.
how people talk about Babyface and Keith Sweat. Talk about some man, they just be begging. But on the Day album, he wasn't. He was being more, he was reflecting on things and stuff like that. So I was just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But that was his opinion. Kenny didn't tell me he was influenced by that. Later. So, and this is the thing, I never understood what happened with that breakup because LA always spoke highly of Kenny, always, you know. So I didn't from LA's end, and it didn't seem like they had a problem because I definitely didn't have a problem. We had no problem because we didn't know each other. It was just that I was on LaFace, and then you had John B was with Babyface.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was
It,
amazing to me because even when the whole comparisons of my voice to Kenny's, I was just like, you know how many times I've sat and listened to Nobody Knows and played When Can I See You Again before and after? I'm like, I don't get how people are listening to Nobody Knows and thinking this is Babyface. I'm like, you know who sounded like Babyface a lot back then to the point where when I heard Kenny and John be on a record together, I couldn't tell who was who.
yeah.
I was like, yo, but even then I knew like right after listening to the rest of John B's record, I'm like, it doesn't sound like Babyface. They sound alike on that record.
Yeah, yeah.
But they don't know. They don't sound nothing like Babyface.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh, I see. It's a reference point. When people hear things, they tend to have a habit of comparing it to something immediately because if they don't really have an in-depth Rolodex of or Rolodex of space to say this is unique in itself, they're going to compare it to something. Tony Braxton went through that with Nita Baker, and then at some point they stopped saying it. For
Mm.
me, for some reason, people have not let go that they think that nobody knows is Babyface. It's weird. I've been on stage and told people that. Like, this is, I said, let me tell y'all something. I know what y'all, this is not it. The guy singing the song is the guy that released the song, period.
So I think if as a fan of music back then, there weren't many black producers or singers that played the guitar. So that
True.
was, you think about Clapton, so more of a pop rock. And Kenny was the one every time we see with his guitar, and most people keyboards, but he was the one with the guitar. And then that type of vibe was a lot of what he did with Eric Clapton, but he would, oh, when can I see you smile again? So that type of stripped down, type of unplugged type of energy. So generally, that's the only person that we generally would see do that. So hence, it's easy just to assume, oh, you're on LaFace and this is the type of stuff that he would do. It's it's lazy
Yeah.
type of assimilated, like +1 + 5 is equals 8. That's it. We just put them together. It's easy and it's easy to market as well. Oh yeah, it's easy for them. As you said, the radio station promoted it, even though they didn't even fact check, because it's easy to. It's a part of marketing and stuff.
I'm gonna tell you something funny. Now I remember before Kenny did When Can I See You Again, where that's really the first time people see him playing guitar, was then in that video.
Mm,
Before then, he's always been a guitar player, but he wasn't visibly playing guitar, right?
mm,
But so when Can I See You Again came out, but here's the thing what people forget is Deion Ferris is playing guitar, Tracy Chapman, right? Even though Tracy Chapman, different genre. But there it was. And I totally get when people are like making these summations of like, oh, it's this and it's that. It was another artist that I was about to tell you about. But once the comparisons, when people make comparisons, at some point they usually die off because it's like, okay, because now this new person that you was comparing this other person to, they got their own footing now. Now
Mm.
the sound you can clearly hear that it's very different, right? And it would be like, yo, what are y'all listening to? Do you listen to the catalog of music I have? Now go ahead and find. Let me hear how many songs you think that person did. It's really interesting. And one time I was in the mall, right? Get this. I had locks at the time, down to about right here. And I'm walking, and this guy walks up to me and says, yo, you on the low, right? I said, what do you mean? You Eric Benet, right? I said, no, man, I'm not. And just walked off. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wait a minute. Eric and I don't look nothing alike.
Apart from the locks that back in
I
that day.
had locks. Eric had locks.
Yeah.
Oh, so because we both have locks, our faces look the same now? It was weird, man. I remember at some point, I've heard people say me and Babyface look alike. I've heard people say me and Usher look alike. I'm like, okay, do you think Usher looks like Babyface? No. You think Babyface like Usher? No. Do you think Eric Benet looks like either one of them? No. So how's it that I look like all of them? It's really weird, man. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really don't know what that is.
But because when you move to say you're doing Birdside, does your approach to the record change? Because you already recorded it back in before words come out. Does your approach and how you want to present it come out? Are they looking for, okay, we need that nobody knows kind of single to as well, or what happens in the sophomore? Because we also hear about the sophomore jinx.
Oh yeah. Well, the sophomore jinx comes from, I think it's a combination of things. One word would be pressure, right? So, and the pressure typically comes from the label, excuse me, because the label really wants to, whatever you did before, they want to do double that or triple that. They always want to go bigger and bigger, right?
Mm.
And quite honestly, the more gradual you do that, the more steady it is, the more defined you have a career. Because if you just go, you do a million or two here, and then you do 10 million, bro, now the pressure is on. Whereas
Yeah.
when you look at Outkast built up
Yeah.
to, once you saw them do 10 million, what happened after that?
Yeah, that's it.
They ain't did 10 million again because the industry changed and a lot of things changed after that album. And then now you got this pressure. So going from the first record to the second record, that sophomore jinx thing is just like, okay, because what you want to do as an artist, you just want to be consistent.
Mm.
Labels they want to go bigger and better, right? They just want to, oh, you do this time we need to do that. And it was like I didn't feel the pressure that most artists would feel because I already had written and recorded the majority of that album. The only songs that I had not recorded, because Bird's Eye came out in 98, I was done with 90% of Bird's Eye in 95. But the songs that I didn't have was Bird's Eye, and it was just a few songs. Bird's Eye, If You're an Angel, and one more song. It was like three or four songs I did not have yet.
Mm.
No Time Soon. And so Silly Man was the first song I had for it because it actually used to be called something else. It used to be called Ocillion. So I was like, okay, Bird's Eye, the album at some point was called This World of the Blue Butterfly. So I had a song that I recorded for the record that was called This World. But when I changed it, it was a challenge. LA had challenged me. He said, man, I bet you can't write. He said, I bet you can't write like a sexy R&B ballad. right? Now I already know what this is. Okay, I'm about to show him because he obviously don't know. So it's sort of like this. When I put out words, Tim was shocked. This was a phone call I had with Tim when I put out words.
Was that Tim Kelly or who?
Yeah, Tim. Tim
Okay.
called me. He's like, "Yo, bro, what is this?" I said, "What do you mean, bro? Where's that? Man, that stuff you played for us back in Detroit, man. Where's that at?"
Oh.
They did not even know that I was coming with a country record as a single and all
Uh,
that other stuff. They were looking for the funk, right? Because of stuff I was playing from the MPC. But that was a funny time, man. He was like, "What is going on with this?" But it was what was I saying about the
so Ellie gave you a bet to write a sexy R&B. So I
yeah,
guess
about
that's
the
Tim.
sexy R&B song. So I was like, "Yo, okay, I got him. I know what he's trying to do." Because the thing about it is, I always put the sexiness I put into the music.
Mm.
I don't ever sing about nothing like that, you know, because the lyric, when it comes down to lyrics, I see that as okay, this is my platform for poetry.
Mm.
I want to be more poetic and intellectually sound when it comes to like what I'm saying, whereas I put that other stuff in the music. So I come up with a song called and I didn't have Blue Butterfly. That was the other song that I didn't have. He was challenging me to that. So what I did was because I'd already recorded the song Bird's Eye, but I hadn't decided that was going to be the name of the album. And so I'm gonna tell you why I changed it to Bird's Eye. So when I was working on this ballad, I said, I'm gonna get him. So I do Blue Butterfly, play it for him. He's like, he's grooving to it. And I just waited till he loved it. And with LA, you don't know if he loves a song until he's listened to it multiple times. Because he can listen to a song one time and say it's a smash, and the next day you play that song, he'll be like, I don't like it. So you just right. So I played Blue Butterfly, and once I knew he loved it, I said, "You know what I'm talking about?" He said, "What?" It's a man and woman. Okay. Talking about butterflies and pollen. That song is about the relationship between butterflies and pollen. And that's it. I said, but it's sexy. And he looked at me. I got him because I proved that I could write a sexy ballad, but I still got my intellectual rocks off. That was, and from that point on, I was like, ah. So when I wrote Blue Butterfly, actually, you know what? I wrote Blue Butterfly before I did Bird's Eye. Bird's Eye was the last song that I wrote. And what it was, Blue Butterfly was one of the last songs, but it wasn't the final one. Because whenever I would leave out of my house and go check my mail, there would be this huge monarch butterfly that would circle my head.
Wow.
So I come out of the door, circle my head all the way down to the mailbox, and then once I come back to the door, just fly away. That's why I was calling the album This World of the Blue Butterfly. Blue Butterfly was a nickname that one of my girlfriends used to call me. So once I decided that I wasn't using the song This World, that changed the title of the album. So then when I came up with Bird's Eye, I was like, yeah, I'll name it Bird's Eye. Because I like one word titles for my albums. So that's why we went with Bird's Eye. And right after I named it Bird's Eye, I had these big picture windows in my house. And there was a couple of occasions the birds just ran right into Bird's Eye.
I mean, as I said, coming off of a Grammy-winning album,
Yeah.
labels expecting more. Are
Yeah.
they pumping more money into videos and marketing to then also raise the
They
expectation?
typically do. They typically do, but labels can be backwards sometimes in this sense. It's not like movies. Like if a movie costs 50 million, they're going to spend 150 million to promote. If an album costs a million to make, they're not spending 3 or 4 million to market that.
Mm.
So no, it's not like that. But what they try to do is ride the momentum from the previous record, right?
Mm.
So what we had was we had a lot of momentum because Words had sold 1 million and some change. Nobody Knows had done like damn near 3 million out singles. picked up the Grammy. We had momentum. The only problem was that right when we were in the award season, my manager at the time, who was very pivotal at making a lot of moves that made it successful, he comes to me and says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I said, "What's up?" He said, "Yeah, I need to get your okay on something." I said, "What's up?" He says, "Well, LA offered me a job." "To do what?" "To work for the label." I'm like, "You can't work for the label and manage me at the same time." I said, "Yo, man," I said, "you're not coming to me to get approval. You're coming to tell me what you're going to do. You're a married man with a child, and you've been living off of management commissions. I get it. I understand. This is going to be guaranteed money for a period of time." But the only thing that was missing from that whole equation was there was no consideration as to like what was going to happen with my career from that point. Because my guy is now working for the label. And if you're an artist, this is sort of like what it's like to be signed to a label. You're signed to someone you're in business with. Their goal is to make as much money as possible. Their goal is not to help you make as much money, but for them. So at that point, I understood why they wanted my manager to work for them, because he made a lot of power moves for me. And then there it was. The whole dynamics, everything changed. And this was like right in the midst of coming off of the heels of Words with all that momentum, going into the preparation of putting out Bird's Eye. Now my manager's on the other side of the fence. And that presented a lot of challenges for my album, because I'm trying to find a new manager at the same time. It was hard, man. You know why? Because my manager, who was now working for the label, he was so good at what he did. Like anybody I met with could not match his energy. He had a very unique energy because he would go to a label and instead of fighting the labels, he would say, "What can I do to help you so that we can all do a better job for Tony?" A lot of managers don't think like that. Most managers, they're trying to angle, because you got to think about it. An artist signs exclusively to a label. A writer signs exclusively to a publishing company. An artist signs exclusively to a manager. But all of those people they sign exclusively to, they have as many as they want. But they want you to give 100% of your energy, but they're giving a fraction of the energy to you. So I was like, that was an eye-opening experience, because I was like, look, I'm happy for everybody that they're making bigger, better moves, but y'all just threw a monkey wrench in my whole system. So now I got to figure out, I got to find a new manager while I'm trying to put out a new record, and we have momentum. And it was just a crazy time. It was like, then I was like, okay, now I know what I don't like about this artist thing.
Wow.
I didn't like that. That was my first time experiencing what it feels like to be on the bottom of the totem pole. Producers and writers are not down that low. The artists. So I was like, okay, that was a lot for me to try to figure out, because it was a sense of, wow, okay, what do I do now? That hit me. That hit me hard, bro. Hit me hard.
Did you have a conversation with LA to say what was, why sabotage me just as I'm about to put out an album that you take my manager?
Well, what I did was I had conversations with both of them, but it wasn't in that way. Like, so my conversation with Mark, I just said, like, man, you're not coming to me to get an approval. Like, come on, man. Like, I'm not your father. You're coming to tell me what you're doing. And with LA, I don't remember what kind of conversation I had with him about that. I didn't have a conversation with him again until anything remotely like that, until like after the release of Bird's Eye. And then I had a conversation with both of them right before they moved up to Arista. Because in the midst of all of that, So the first step was my manager then went to work for the label. The second one was LA was preparing to go run Arista now,
Yes,
and
quite.
LaFace was about to sell. So it was a lot of
Mm.
it was a whole lot of confusion and a lot of moves being made. And at the same time, when they released um, Bird's Eye, they released Bird's Eye, um, My Way, and
Oh,
Sam Salter, all within a few months apart. From like they did like three albums within a 3 month period, and that was not a smart move
yeah.
because they were so good at doing one at a time.
Mm.
So as a result of that, me and Sam's records suffered, bro.
Especially with My Way being the big hit that for
That's
Usher.
right. You Make Me Wanna was like out of here.
Yeah.
So when that happens with small labels like that, they're going to push all of their resources to whatever's taking, just making the most traction. So
Yeah.
that meant Sam, as a new artist on his first album, he was done. And I hated that for him because I love me some Sam Salter. And then Birds I suffered because of that too. Because they never really had enough resources to
Mm.
like fund two projects at once like that. That wasn't a good move. But that was the move they made.
You know, the thing that you mentioned earlier is about your manager takes you to see some guy in a big apartment, plays a video, then you leave, and the next minute you are on a Grammy, which probably gives you an advantage when it came down to the nominations. So you're talking about how he makes those type of moves. You're thinking ahead. You think if Mark was still managing you, he probably could have seen how to maneuver things based when he saw that what they were trying to do.
Oh yes, he would have. The thing is, the reason why they wanted him is because he was a he made power moves. You understand what I'm saying? Mark could Mark could call Clyde Davis and cuss Clyde out,
Wow.
and then say, "All right, I'll see you next week. Let's do lunch." LA couldn't do that. He couldn't call him. No, no, no. So it was a move where I know without a doubt I knew what Mark was trying to do, and I wasn't mad at him for that. My whole thing was is like, bro, we this is going so well. How do you just how do you just drop that? But that's what happened. And it's just one of those things where I was like, I was in disbelief for a while, but I got over it because I'm like, I'm just keep creating and move on as best I could. And that's exactly what I did. So we got everything together, finished the album, mastered it, all that, and it was time to release. And then that's when you see the difference between when a label is really pushing their resources behind you versus when they're not. You feel it. It's a drastic difference.
You know, Michael Jackson said that about Invincible. He felt like Sony wasn't supporting the album like they'd done in
Mhm.
previous times, and he called them out. But as I said, as a fan, you don't really notice. You think, well, we've seen the album. We'll know when to. The casual, the hardcore fan will. It's coming out this day. We'll go get it. But he knew that they're not backing this, and this was this. So you could tell. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like when it goes well, it's all good. When it doesn't go well, the artist gets blamed. And what happens with the general public, they're watching. If they turn around and see that, oh, you have this great album, and then all of a sudden it's not doing too well, you're not really putting anything out, they assume, oh, they fell off. They never really think like there must have been something going on. Like, what I wonder what's been going on at the label, blah, 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 because labels make stars with money, right? So yes, it's like this. You ever you ever see someone just a person just walking down the street and they're dressed in a certain way. They have a vibe about them. They
Hmm.
just look very different. Okay,
Yeah.
they're not a star yet, but they're interesting. A
Mm.
label takes someone like that and they put money behind it to make sure, like in the music business, when your face is on screens and your voice is on the radio, that's how they make you famous.
Mm.
Is they saturate people's ears and eyes with you. Same thing
Mm.
in the movies. That's why you see repeatedly the same actor playing different roles, but every role they sound like the same person.
Mm.
It's the repetition of that, and then that blows up, and then people just like, wow. And then what is that? What's that saying? You're only as big as your last hit.
Mm.
Well, guess what? Nobody knows it was a massive hit. So still to this day, the respect that I get is based upon how massive that hit is.
Mm.
So I have no regrets about none of it. It's just that it's some things that happen in business, some shit that you just won't be cool with. It is what it is. You just got to figure out a way to like navigate around it. It's no different than being like one of the things that was cool when I was signed as a producer at LaFace was that nobody was in my way. Me and my brother, it wasn't like we were signed and it was like 20 different like staff, writers, and producers. It was just me and him, right? So I'm grateful for that. You just have like everybody has like a little different, you know, it's interesting. I have no regrets. It's just that over time you just realize like, wow, I wouldn't have done that or I wouldn't have done this, but that was done.
So is this what then changes your relationship with LA and LaFace when all this happens and Birdseye doesn't get the support because you're seeing what's happening with Usher's album, and then you said Sound Salsa just comes out and disappears. Is this what get the reality of, wow, this is what it's like being an artist? Do you then ever contemplate, what, I'm gonna go back to being a full-time producer, songwriter, or do you still think, I'm gonna continue being a recording artist? I know you did. Was there ever a crossroads after Birdseye didn't perform as it should have?
Well, of course, when you don't get results that you expect or hope for on all levels, that's going to be a reason um, for concern and maybe an interest to have a discussion about it because it's like because it does make you like for me as a creative, it never made me question my creativity.
Yeah.
It just made me question my business choices. Like, how do I move forward from here? Like, how do I not be jaded, right? Like,
Mm.
how do I not like label any and everybody in the music business as being underhanded and backstabbing? Like, how do I do that, right? Because everybody's not the same, right? And so I just looked at. So what I did was because I knew both of them so well, I looked I looked at I looked at it through the lens of how Mark was seeing it as a manager, living off commission. That can be stressful. But
Mm.
you're gonna get a contract where you know exactly how much money you're gonna make for the next 5 years.
Mm.
I was like, bro, I'm happy for you in that regard. When he came to LA, I looked through his lens, like, okay, he sees this manager doing things for this artist on a level that no other manager on this that's managing any other artists have done, and he's so easy to work with. And he embedded himself with the label of like, hell, just let me know what I can do to help y'all do a better job for my artists. So I knew that he wanted that magic for all his artists, and also because Mark could communicate with Arista in a way that he couldn't. So I was just like, oh, okay. When I look at it that way, then I can sort of like understand, like, okay, I get that. I still don't like where that left me, but at the same time, when you think about it, it becomes like this beautiful divine orchestration of things, right? Because after they left, moved up to New York, um, I ran into LA in the mall. He was in Atlanta. As soon as he sees me, he says, Antonio. I said, what's up, Antonio? And he says, you were a godsend. That's what he tells me when he sees me. So I'm like, okay. So it's the same whenever I talk to Tim and Bob. I say, thanks, bro. I appreciate everything y'all did for me. And I mean that. But that's what I say to them. That's what I say to Perry. That's what I say to LA. That's what I say to John Sally. Anybody that played a pivotal role in changing my life. Because at some point, the rest of it is up to you. So when I was presented with, oh, they offered me a job, I'm a grown man. I can't cry about that. I have to just figure it out. And that's what I did. Because I assure you right now that me as a person, as a creator, I'm probably 1,000 times happier and more sound of mind than most of the people I was around back in that time. I live my life in a very creative way, and I do what I do my art, do my music, and it's great. I just really love the freedom now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a song that I was surprised that you did for my favorite group on their comeback album. Why You Want to Keep Me For My Baby?
Oh, that's an interesting. Yo, that is an interesting story. Because remember when I mentioned like so back in the day before I got into business, I was like I had this list of producers I wanted to meet. Or I said not that I wanted to meet them, I said I'm going to meet them. I was very, very particular. I said I said these are the list of producers I'm gonna meet, and I'm gonna meet them, and we're gonna meet eye to eye. It's not gonna be hey, listen to my demo. So I meet LA first, of course, and because I was sent over by his wife, he treated me with a lot of respect, right? So I was like, this is cool, right? Then I met Kenny after that, but that was very brief. Nothing special about that. And then who was it? I spoke to Quincy on the phone. And was ironic. I spoke to Quincy on the phone while I was in Acapulco hanging out with my best friend who's Mexican. His father was like the richest man in Mexico. And I'm sitting up there. He puts Quincy on the phone and Quincy's like, yo, man, blah, blah, blah. Next, I meet Teddy. So the way I met Teddy Riley was I was at the Soul Train Awards. This was right after I won. Yeah, this is right after I won my Grammy. So the Grammys was the week before, and I was it was the American Music Awards. No, Soul Train Awards next week, that following week. When I come off stage, I had my good friend. Oh, who was it? I have a good friend of mine. Yeah, my good friend Chris was with me, and because every now and then I would take friends of mine that were from my hometown. I was like, "Hey, you ever been to such and such?" I'll just take one. Never had an entourage. I'll just pick a friend. And so he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So we're backstage because I had to. Who was it? I think I presented an award to someone, and Maxwell had won something. So we come off stage. I remember seeing it was this woman. She had on this green suit. She was decked out, beautiful black woman. But I mean, just very business casual, right? So she says, "Hey, Tony Rich, I really love your music. Thank you, appreciate it." And I keep it moving. The next night, I'm at the museum. This was the night that Biggie got killed. I was there at that museum. And I remember I was on this one side of the museum when I got there because my friend Chris didn't go. He was visiting some of his family members. I said, "Bro, I'm gonna go to this museum party and then I'll be back, scoop you up, and then we go into the Outcast party because Outcast was celebrating their what do you call it? The Stankonia, Love Below Speaker Box album. They were celebrating some milestone they hit with that record. So we get there, and I'm standing there, and my friend Chris says, "Yo, man, it's two women that are walking like it's two women like staring at you like you're a piece of meat." So I said, "What are you talking about? Where?" Right? So, and they were on opposite ends of the room. And I was like, "Whoa, man, you right." And then they started coming in, but the shorter woman makes it to me first. Okay, she walks up to me. She says, "Hey, my name is Heather. want to go out sometimes? And I was thinking like, I'm looking down because she's so short and petite, but she just didn't care. Turns out it was Heather Hunter, the former porn star,
Okay, okay.
whom to this day is one of my best friends.
Wow.
So we've been friends ever since then. It was funny because she asked me out, but we never went out. But she made it to me first. The other girls saw her make it to me. She turned off. And so at that point, me and Chris, we moved to a different section, and that's where we see her. But she's dressed different. This woman, the second woman, I didn't recognize her. And then she said, "You don't remember me?" And I said, No. She says, "Last night at Soul Train Awards, I had the suit on." But she had a shirt on that had her back out. It looked totally different. Like she was a totally different, she was in hot girl mode. And so she says, "Yeah, I manage Blackstreet, Teddy Riley, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Oh, wow." And I told her, I was like, "Yeah, I got mad respect for Teddy. He's on my list that's one of the people I'm gonna meet." She said, "Yeah, blah, blah, blah." And then she had told him, "Yeah, I was hanging out with Tony Rich. I really like him." And he said, "I got a lot of respect for him." So she linked us up
Mm,
because they used to date. And at
yeah.
this point in time, she and I started dating. But after that, once me and Teddy met, Teddy would reach out to me every now and then, and he'd just be like, he would call me like this: "Yo, I got this track I want to send you. I need some dope lyrics." I was like, "Cool." So Teddy would call me for about lyrics, and it
Mm,
was about how I say what I say. And then at one point, he called me up to Virginia to work on um, the Guy 3 album.
yeah.
So he said, "Look, man, I got two tracks. I already have the hook the hook and the tracks and the hooks for him." I said, "All right, cool." So there was 2004 and then Why You Want to Kick Me For My Baby, right? So
Mm,
I was literally locked in the studio writing those lyrics. And then the exciting part was to hear Aaron singing it after my right. So on Why You Want to Kick Me For My Baby, I just wrote the verses and the bridge on that. The hook and the track was written by Teddy. And then 2004, all the stuff that Teddy's rapping, I
yeah.
wrote that. Which so it was, but it was fun, man, because Teddy was he's so generous with information about music technology and stuff like that. And so it was awesome to meet him. And still to this day, man, Teddy and I are cool. And Prince was the other person. So I met Prince in 90s. I met him in 96. But so I met all the people I wanted to meet, as far as producers wise, I met them all.
Yeah. So I think when I interviewed Eddie F, he was saying that Teddy used to share what he did, because it wasn't as if, well, I don't want people to know my secrets. Like, yeah, this is the technology I'm using. If you could do it as good as me, that's great. So
Yeah.
that's interesting that you said that he would,
It's true. It's so true, man. Teddy would, remember, there was a point in time when Teddy lived in Atlanta at the same time I was there. And we would talk on the phone. He'd be like, because we always call each other TR, right? So I'd be like, "Yo," um, at one point we had talked about doing a group, a duo. We were going to call it TR2. But I remember at one point he said, we were talking and he said, "Yeah, I'm using such and such now." He would just tell me what he's using. And then he said, "Yo, get a drive and meet me at the house. I'll give you a bunch of sounds," which was unheard of because when I remember one time I tried to get some sounds from somebody, they act like you're going to use the sounds in the same exact way.
Mm.
Teddy does that. Teddy will tell me what he's using. He'll tell me who to call so I can get hooked up. I remember when I first started messing with Pro Tools. He said, "Look, just call them and tell them who you are. They'll hook you up." I'm like, "Just like that?" He said, "Yeah." I called him, told him who I was, and that's exactly what happened. And so from that point on, Teddy would always tell me, he'd be like, "Hey, what you working with now?" And I would say, I remember at one point when I started working with uh, Reason, and combining Reason with my MPC and Pro Tools. That's what Teddy told me. That's what he was doing. Then like I use Studio One now because Teddy told me I use Studio One. So, and the thing about it is the things that he, especially when he would tell you that, and then he would let you hear what he did with it. How could you not use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's very generous like that.
When you think of a track like Why You Want to Keep It For My Baby, was that already that was the title, then you had to then write around it, or
Yeah, that was the title. And what it was that Why You Want to Keep Me From My Baby was a song that he did and then wanted me to help finish for Aaron to sing because Aaron was having that issue
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yes, yeah.
with his baby being kept from him.
Yeah.
So with me being a father and dealing with, issues that you have with the other parents sometimes when it comes to that,
Mm,
I wait. So I kind of knew some of the things to say.
mm.
And but it was fun. It was just fun to collaborate with Teddy in any capacity like that because I have so much respect for him. It
Yeah,
was great.
I actually thought Aaron, because it felt very personal to Aaron, so I thought he must have written it. But yeah,
I
so
don't
that
need.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
but it
when
was
you
great.
yeah, I mean so I guess yeah, lots of then yeah, 2000 yeah 2004. So everything he was talking about the future and all that stuff. Well, how did you? Well, because it's think about it, 2004 back then seemed like, oh yeah, we're gonna have flying cars.
Right.
I'm,
That was the crazy thing because when we recorded that,
I'm,
that was
I'm, I'm with the album right now, so
'98.
I'm with the album
Oh
right
yeah,
now,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like
That was like
2000.
'98, I think. Right? Did
Yeah,
that come out '98?
I'm just checking see here because it is strange that
'98 or '99?
yeah, it's probably about 99. But yeah, it just seems strange that I was listening to this the other day, and I'm like, you're talking about stuff that it seems as if, oh yeah, flying cars and stuff. I'm thinking it was in 2004. So what were you thinking? Were you
So
just thinking futuristic?
I was thinking futuristic, and that was before I realized that we move so slow when it comes to technology. You would have thought that we would have been fully electric cars by now. No, it's still a struggle. But back then, I was trying to think like, and when you think about like, it's like 98, 99, you think like 2004, it's like, I think there's an optimistic edge that people might have sometimes in thinking about how far we're going to be. And
Yeah,
then it's 2024, and it's like,
it's
you
have you
still hear
listened to
rumors
it?
about flying cars. It's like,
Yeah, have you
wow.
listened to it since then, just to see what you wrote?
Oh no, 2004. I listen to every now and then because I just love how funky that track
Yeah.
is.
No, as I said, I listened to it just like, I think 2 days ago, and I was like, yeah, none of this is happening. Yeah,
Man,
so it
that
is
track.
just that you know
Oh,
just
yeah, it didn't age well, clearly.
it's yeah. But as I said, why you want to keep my phone, baby? I think, as I said, really because it spoke to a lot of yeah, a lot of dads who were going through those types of situations, and which was is a shame. And the way Aaron delivered it, you could tell it was from the heart. So
Okay, he did a great job.
yeah,
Love him some Aaron too, man. He's just a great. He's a great singer, man. It's like just like passionate, like just the when he sings, the conviction he sings with.
yeah.
Yeah, unmatched.
I mean, just as we wrap up, I guess for me it was just the thing that we didn't really touch was after the disappointment of Bird's Eye, is that when you and then so your manager, and I didn't realize that actually has an indirect the link was that your manager goes and joins LA, then all of a sudden they're moving up to Arista, Clive's getting kicked pushed to the side, and there's the
Yeah,
upheaval with the whole label and stuff. Is
yeah.
that when you had so how does that then affect an artist on on a label? Your sophomore album's not doesn't do great. The people that were staring things, even LA, where who you used to chat with daily, is now moved away. Is that when you decided, let me move out or what?
Well, actually, I left LaFace. I asked for a release. That was in '99. They moved to Arista, like was like 2000, wasn't too long after that. So it was
Mm.
all happening at the same time. The move was occurring, so the sale of LaFace was occurring, the move to Arista, me leaving LaFace, all that was happening in the same frame of time. And so I asked for the release and LA granted the release. I was grateful that he did. It was just that after the release was granted, it was because my whole thing was what I knew at that point, the face was a sinking ship. Because what I knew was that once everything went up to Arista, there was going to be no more LaFace.
Mm.
LaFace was being bought, and then it was just going to be no more. And so I was just like, I need to get off this ship. I just want to continue my career. So I just did it in the most diplomatic way possible, which was to reach out to LA, say, hey man, look, I really congratulate you on everything you got going on, new move and all that. I said, but I got to continue on. And I started with you. I think you should help me find a new place. So he set up some meetings with some different labels. They were not as excited or whatever. And then it just didn't work out. And so then I was like, I asked for the release and I got it. But once I got the release, and I don't know if this is how they have to do it, but this is how they did it, right? They have to issue a release, but then they have to give notice to the parent label. So they had to give notice to Arista because Arista had what was called first right of refusal to pick up the contract, which I knew they weren't going to pick up my contract. I knew that. So because my project was not something that was easy for them to understand how to work. Whereas
But LA's running Arista, was he not?
not at that time.
Okay.
Not yet. He was still the face when I got my release.
Okay.
And then when but I had to wait a period of time before I could talk to other labels.
Mm.
So I had to wait like 60 days before I could speak to anyone else after the release was granted, because that 60-day period was the time, it was 60 days that Arista had to respond
Mm.
to me being released. So that was that. And then once that time was up and then I could go and talk to labels, my attorneys had set up meetings with every label imaginable. Okay. And every meeting I went to, all of them said the same thing. We heard you're hard to work with.
What?
Yes. Every label said, we heard you're hard to work with. I dealt with meetings with people, and I'm talking these major labels. I mean, I dealt with sitting in a meeting and the dude's has his back to me for 20 minutes while he's on a phone call, then turn around, look at me and say, so who's going to produce the record? And I'm thinking, I said, me, the Grammy Award winning producer and artist. I'm going to produce my own record. So after about 6, 7 meetings going like that, I was just like, you know what? I'll figure this out myself. And so that's what I did. I moved on from there and I wound up finding this, linked up with this label called Compendia. And that's when I did the Resurrected record. And then from there, I did another independent deal with, this wasn't even a legitimate label. That was the Pictures album. And then I got with Hidden Beach for Exist after that. So it was like, and when I was with Hidden Beach, I did 2 albums. The second album, they only released in South Africa because they didn't really know what they were doing at some point. But that was it. It was so after that mountain of a fucking storm with everything that was going on with LaFace and Arista and all of that, I was just like, I just started to reevaluate a lot of things because I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make me not want to do music anymore.
Mm.
Nothing would make me want to not do music unless I just didn't have any more songs in me. But what it made me think about was, what was I? I'm not just a musician. not just completely defined by that. I'm a
Mm.
creative. And music is one of my creative expressions that I'm really, really great at. But then I always had art too, because I was doing my art behind the scenes the whole time I was doing music. I just wasn't like, it was more so like if someone said, hey, what do you do when you're not doing music? Art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
movies, stuff like that. But it was like the disappointing thing was to have any gap of time when you're developing connection with an audience that is growing, that's getting older, and you're discovering new people. But after that, yeah, after that, the taste in my mouth about the music business, I clearly knew at that point in time, I don't like the way this tastes.
Mm.
I'm not digesting this anymore.
Mm.
I'm gonna do this on my own terms,
Mm.
when I want, how I want. That's when it changed for me because it was just I just experienced a lot of stuff all at once, and I'm like, this is not what it's supposed to be about. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, we don't. I didn't get into this business to be political. Got into this business so I can make music. And once it gets to a point where it becomes more about other things other than the creativity and expression of music, it's not fun anymore. And when it's not fun,
Mm.
you either don't do it anymore or you find a different way to do it. My choice was to find a different way to do it. And that's really what it boils down to.
Were you, do you think you were blacklisted for some reason then?
Here's what I will say. There was a time when someone said they were blacklisted or blackballed or whatever. That
Mm.
shit would last forever, right? But at that time, the way that record executives were operating on 2-year contracts, that shit only lasts a couple of years, right?
Mm.
And but it's one of those things where I, because I was not in any conversations with anybody that was discussing me, I don't know who said what. All I do know is that I was only signed to one label at that time. And for other labels to say that about me being hard to work with, I'm like, where y'all getting that from? And that was after me being as diplomatic as I could. There was no blow up. Like I would never like LaFace didn't steal no money from me or none of that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have that experience. My
Mm.
experience was I had a pretty cool experience, right? And but it's just that it became something else that wasn't about music. But I enjoyed everything positive that I experienced. I enjoyed that. I have no regrets for that.
Mm.
I could have not done with all the other crazy political stuff. But it does, it just puts a bad taste in your mouth about how the business operates,
Yeah.
about doing music, you know? And every industry has their thing. I'm certain of it. Like I'm learning that in the fine art industry now. It's like it's cliquish, right? You have these cliques, and then you have people that are afraid of you getting ahead of them, blah, 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 whatever. But the reality is that when it comes to music and anything that's creative, it's enough room for all of us to make contributions. And I remember someone asked me like, "Hey, what is your opinion on the state of R&B?" Some years ago. I said, "My opinion doesn't matter. What do you think about that?" It doesn't. It's like I'm not buying the music. I said, my contributions is what matters. If I'm going to contribute something, that's what matters. But my opinion, like I'm not one that's going to sit up and have an opinion about what someone else creates. I
Mm.
respect creators. If you think it's creative, that's on you. I might not like it, but I don't have to say I don't like it. I remember
Mm.
someone said to me once, I was doing an interview about, and I said, listen, I said, I never ask people if they like my music or if they think it's good. Why would I spend time and energy and natural ability to create something and then hand it over and ask someone, what do you think? I never ask that. What I say is, listen to this and tell me how it makes you feel. Because
Mm.
that's really all that matters. If I don't like something, I would never tell someone, I don't like what you create.
Yeah.
Pointless. Because there's going to be hundreds, thousands, or millions of people that's going to love what that person creates.
Yeah.
Your opinion doesn't matter unless you're buying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so that's how I look at it. And it's good. It's good to see where some people from that era what they're doing now, and that my whole thing is as long as everybody's happy and satisfied with where they are, or
Yeah.
as Dave Chappelle said it, find an altitude of success that's comfortable for you.
Mm,
Yeah, because the reality is I'm more successful than a lot of people
mm.
that I was around in that time. But
I
it's
mean,
not what they think though, you know?
yeah. But because you had good people around, made good decisions, and you left at your own terms. But right now, then, are you? You know, I saw some videos you posted of doing doing some artwork.
Mhm.
Um, was this stuff that you got inspired by your dad? Because when we start off, you spoke about your dad being an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was this stuff that you've always had from him, or was this you found you because you said you were going to be an architect when you
Yeah.
that was a thought. So is this was that still part of this?
Well, I will tell you this. I took this upon myself at a very young age. I always knew my father was an artist. I would see his drawings. He would use pastel charcoal and paper.
Mm,
I would always see his drawings around the house, so I knew I had that ability. And music, once we got into music, we figured out Dad could play better than we could play. So what I wanted to do was with those two gifts, it became my charge to go to levels that my father just didn't think to do.
mm,
So with music, yeah, my father a musician, but nobody really knew that. Nobody in the family really knew that. So I'm like, I took that and sold millions of albums, picked up a Grammy. You know what I'm saying? Like
mm,
I'm known for making quality music. The way I see it, the only evidence that my father ever existed on this planet is by me telling you. That's where I get my talents from, right? And then when it came to art, my dad would do like he would do like portraits for people.
mm,
He might do like and they might pay him a couple $100. But what happens is that when I'm doing it, like when I'm working on a piece of art, I remember at some point I was working on two pieces and I went and bought some chalk and to incorporate it in this piece. And I was just like, as I was doing it, I was remembering my dad used to show me and my brother how to blend and do the shading, but do it with his, he showed like with his fingers. And but then I have these little shading sticks that I use because that shit gets on your hands, it's hard to get off. But I was like, when I create art, even when I was doing music, I always felt like I was channeling my father
mm,
because I'm him up for the second swing,
mm, mm, mm,
you know. So and then even now to this day, my 12-year-old son lives with me. He plays piccolo flute, regular flute, clarinet, bass clarinet. He can play any saxophone,
mm,
right? And violin. And now he's telling me he wants a keyboard. And he's like, Dad, when are you gonna show me some paint techniques? I love that, right?
mm,
Because he's is the difference between what he's seeing versus what I saw. I saw my father have talents and not have an interest to make money from it like that. My son watches me create paintings. I'll
mm,
even involve him and say, hey, what do you think I should name this one? And he'll be like, how much you gonna sell it for? I'll tell him and he'll be like, name it this. So I involve him in the process. So he
mm,
sees me create art, he sees me sell it. He watch it, he rides with me to go pack it up and ship it, right? And the same thing with music. He watches me create music, watches me perform it. So he's growing up knowing that, oh, this is a real thing that you can actually make a living from, as opposed
mm,
to be like he won't have to do what I did, which was, no, I'm going to make something of this, right? And
mm.
so when I'm doing anything creative, I always have my father in mind.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, are you balancing? Are you still performing and touring? Um, or are you is your focus mainly on your visual arts?
No, it's on both, actually. So what I did was, it was while I was living in Australia. When I was in Australia is when I started to paint a lot. Like I had like a lot of concentrated time. I did some shows while I was over there too, but I was painting like every day. And I would take a break when I would come back to the States for a couple months and I'll go back there a couple. I did that for like 5 years, just back and forth every 2 months. I was here and there. But when I was there, I was painting. Then I'll come here, I'll do some performances, whatever. But I'm doing both because they don't they don't disrupt one another, right? And I've actually linked up with this agent last year. This guy reached out to me on Instagram. It's really interesting because this guy just loves my music. So I was telling him about what's going on. And so we're working on putting together some shows that are actually going to be, when people come to the show, it's an art show, then a performance. So I'm finding a way to bridge it because what made me want to do that was to say, okay, how do I transfer or share what I've achieved musically to what I'm doing artistic wise? Because one of the advantages I have in the art world, it's a slight advantage, but an advantage nonetheless, is I have a name that people know. But it's just all about taking that cursor and pointing and say like, hey, the guy that creates this music also does that art. And then I'm learning like the thing in the art world, it's like in the art world, you don't have to have a million collectors. Like you have to have a million people buy your album. All you need is a handful of collectors. They're going to always buy whatever you come up with. Right. So, and the cool thing is I've used music royalties to buy art supplies until I start selling art. Now the art buys the art supplies. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So because I love doing both. Like, man, listen, the last time I was in the UK performing, it breaks my heart to think about it, but this is what happened. And this is a great story, okay? I go over there, I want to say it was 96. I want to say it was 96. Yeah, I'm almost certain it was 96. So I go over, yeah, it was 96. I go over to open up for Tina Turner. Tina Turner, it was you remember that tour she did? Was it the Dreams tour? I think so. And I was opening up for her 4 nights at the Wembley Arena.
Wow.
Okay. And it was my birthday that week. And I performed one night. Yeah, I got there the day before my birthday and performed. So this was November. And so when I get there, but I'm getting up every morning at like 5 in the morning to do interviews. So I was interviewing all the way up until 2 o'clock. We drive out to the arena, do our sound check, blah, 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 all that. Well, the trip before that, I think, when I was in the UK, so I did Mariah Carey's tour before. I did one night at Wembley with her, one night in Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and Paris. It was just 4 nights. But it was spread out over a 2-3 week period because Mariah wouldn't do back-to-back shows, whereas Tina Turner was back-to-back 4 nights in a row. So, but during the Mariah Carey tour at the Wembley Arena, I met Eric Clapton. Eric came to the show. And he said to me, yeah, I turned Sheryl Crow onto your music. After that, me and Sheryl Crow became friends, right? And then so Eric, so here it is, I'm doing the 4 nights at the Wembley with Tina Turner. My manager calls and says, hey, Scooter and Cheryl are in town. They're going to meet us downstairs for lunch in the hotel lobby. It's like, cool. So we go down there. So me and Mark are sitting there with Sheryl Crow and her manager, Scooter. And who comes walking in, soaking wet, with a doggone backpack on? Eric Clapton. He then took the train over to meet with us. And we're sitting down. I'll never forget this, man. He says to me, now, I had already done 2 of the 4 shows I was supposed to do. So we're sitting there, and Eric is talking. We're talking about all types of music or whatever. And he says, Tony, look at my hand. Look at his hand. He says, that hand is white. He said, but I'm a black blues man. trapped in a white man's body. And I started laughing. I was like, "What? Are you crazy?" So we were just having this really interesting. I'm just sitting at the table with Eric Clapton, Sheryl Crow, and our managers in here. And so Eric says, "Hey, I want you to come in and do this session." So he had me and Cheryl do some vocals, but in separate sessions. But he said that it was for this project he was working on, that it had no name. And then he wanted me to do vocals for an album, that an upcoming album, which was the Pilgrim album. I don't know if you ever heard that album. But so I was scheduled to go in the studio with him on that Saturday. And I had a show, my own solo show on that Sunday. This is all in the UK.
Mm.
I go, my driver picks me up, takes me to Eric's session. I do the vocals for the two projects he's working on. And then as soon as I get in the car, my driver picks me up, the session is done, I get in the car. As soon as I close the door, I instantly felt sick. I was like, what is going on?
Mm.
So I go back to the hotel and I was like, I didn't go to sleep. So I sleep as long as I rest. I wake up the next day, I can barely breathe. I feel sick. My body is just breaking down.
Mm.
And I had a show that night, that Sunday night, and As Yet was opening up for me. So I go to sound check, still feel like shit. I can't. I'm having asthma issues like that. I had to cancel that show. My performance. As Yet had to do the whole show that night.
Wow.
And I heard people did not like that. So from that point, they were like, they sent a doctor to the hotel room, and I had a complete physical breakdown. My body was just like, so I booked a flight the very next morning back to the US. And then when I got back home, I was on bed rest for 10 days.
Wow.
I couldn't walk for 10 days. I was exhausted. And after that, I was just like, I don't like this workhorse type thing. I can't live like this. This is not gonna happen. So that was another pivotal point. That changed my mind and perspective about a lot of things too. But that was the last time I was there. And the thing about it is, I still do performances. I don't perform as often as I like to, but I love to perform. So it's funny. It's funny. After we talked last time, I was thinking like, man, I need to go to the UK. I ain't been there in a long time because I used to perform in the UK more than any place else.
Wow.
Like when I released Words, we released in Germany first, then the UK, then the United States. So I spent a lot of time in the UK doing a lot of performances and promo stuff and everything. I was just there a lot. I haven't been there in years. 96, 97, last time I was there.
Oh, we were close up to 30 years now. So that is
Yes,
that's definitely a long
a
time.
very long time.
So I guess just for fans who are going to be watching this, are they going to be able to say, are they going to expect to be able to see you tour in the US, or are you thinking Europe, or what do you think is more likely over the next 12 months?
I have no clue. Like I said, no, seriously, I've been talking with this agent. So we're working on something. We're getting some stuff set up. And what I do is sometimes I'll tell them like, hey, check this market, check that market. Because it's easy to go and perform where this is what I learned from working with different agents. Some agents are really, really good. They can get you work no matter if you have a record actively on the radio or not. But some need that. They can only book you if it's based upon that. But it's one of those things where what he and I are working on is finding the markets where there is any kind of demand for people to see me on stage. You got to be realistic. When you first start out as a performer, you think like, oh yeah, you think everybody wants to see you. No, they don't. The only people want to see you perform is the people that want to see you perform. So you got to find out, okay, where are they? And are there enough people there? I think doing it in the States, it can kind of suck in the sense that you got Live Nation, just the way they've sewn up it's a monopoly. It's crazy. The way they got that set up is crazy. Whereas I'm more so into intimate performances. I've always loved those from day one, where it's like a room that's no more than 1,500 people. If it's like 500 people, that's even better. And just like the smaller, more intimate, because then you
Yeah.
can have conversations with the people while you perform. You can tell stories. It's a lot of I want to do something really creative like that. Just do like a come over there and do a tour of like small venues that just put
Mm,
the cool vibes, man. If you know
yeah.
of any, let me know. But that's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
I'm working on a project. I'm working on a documentary project about my just my whole creative ventures, and it's going to cover art and music.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's the I interviewed John B just a week ago, and he's constantly doing these Yossi those type of small little venues, but constantly performing and I guess building up that momentum. And I guess once you get into it, I think people start to see it. So you won't see him on these 90s R&B block party shows where there's 10 acts. It's more like doing individual spot dates there and there, which probably the kind of audience that appreciate your type of music
exactly.
are pretty much willing to be able to see you there and stuff like that. So but I guess that's an interesting thing because there's a lot of exposure to art. I think um, Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys have started to invest in art, and so I think that's an area that they're going to try and make more accessible to the black community, not just the exclusive art dealers. So there may be something that you're
It's an
building
interesting.
upon.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting world, and it's funny because the what John is doing now. A couple friends of mine are busy performing. I mean, like nonstop. So Eric Roberson,
Mm,
Jeff Bradshaw, Algebra, because they're constantly performing in the same venues. They
yeah.
just circulate. But the thing about it is there's a following. And all you got to do, you have to tap into that.
Mm,
My whole thing is that I think I think of like broader net thing because what I've always known is that the majority of my royalties always come from overseas, right?
mm,
So that's why I tend to look at overseas a lot more than here.
mm,
But it's like I love like the last performance I did in Atlanta was 2019. And I did one at City Winery. I did a performance here at Art Basel um, a year ago. But other than that, it's like I'm, what my interest is to do things that I really, really want to do. And it's
mm,
very, very intimate and personal. And
mm.
I think that stuff it just, and if you can do that enough times, enough venues, John's approach is proper because people love what he does. And if you put him on the right stage, they're going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's what any is. And it's like my boy Jeff plays trombone. But I'm telling you, when I tell you out of 7 days out of a week, he works 4 or 5 days. I'm not
Mm,
lying. He's like always on the road doing shows. And it's like, that amazes me that a lot of artists that I know that may have never had a major hit or never had a major deal, they constantly work on stage. Because that's
yeah.
a whole nother industry, is the live performance industry. Now, I'm not talking about that Live Nation level.
Yeah.
That's some ridiculous stuff. That's just ridiculous. Nobody should be paying $400 or $500 for a
Yeah.
ticket to go perform. It's ridiculous. But I'm talking about where, the $20, $40, $80 tickets like that.
Yeah.
That's that's what people really, really enjoy because then you can be in the room with the artist and really feel close to them because they're only like right there, as opposed to you looking on a screen because they look like a little Lego man way down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I mean, Nicole Ray, I was surprised that she was performing in London at the Jazz Cafe last night. Um, and I was like, but she only had that one hit, Hot Boys, and but there seems to be, but then she left that type of the sound and went into her sort of neo soul type of
Yeah,
vibe. And I'm surprised that okay, she's performing at the Jazz Cafe and it's sold out, so there's an audience for that, even though
Right.
it's not a big push for the record. But I think there is a collective that they see the name and they've experienced the vibe, and there are people that are gravitating to that. And so I guess um yeah, so but I guess it's stuff that if you make yourself available, I guess I don't know how many people still think you sing because we don't see clips of you performing or of recent videos. So it's just easy to think that, oh, he doesn't perform or sing anymore.
Correct.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I said, I'm
You
surprised.
know, it's funny.
Yeah.
There was a clip. There was a clip of Big Boy from Outkast and Sleepy Brown. They were doing an interview on this podcast, $1 million worth of game, and they were talking about LaFace at that time. And they had said, Wallow had said, one of the co-hosts, he was like, yo, he said, yo, man, you know which artist, man, the baddest artist y'all ever had on LaFace, man? They was like, who? He's talking about Party Rich Project, man. Nobody knows. And he starts singing it. And then Big Boy's like, yeah, man, yeah. And then Sleepy goes, yeah, man, that album when he did Diamond on his first record. And then Gilly says, yeah, Tony probably said, like, hey, I got my money, I'm out. I'm thinking to myself, right, what album did what album sold 10 million copies? That was my first record. But it was funny because it's like it's one of those things where if people don't see you,
Hmm.
they don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And when they don't know what you're doing, they're going to fill in the blanks unless they know. And that's the thing with I was when I did Art Basel a couple times, I had this one guy, this dude traveled from somewhere and he came to the art show, but he had every album I have made. He wanted me to
Wow.
sing. He's like, man, when you're doing a concert. And so I started to notice like people that were coming to the art shows are like asking me about music. And I said, no, I'm still doing music. I'll do this too. And but it's beautiful because it's been beautiful sort of like merging myself into doing both. Right.
Hmm.
And because it requires two different types of energies, two different types of resources, it's so easy to do both, right? Because I can paint at any point in time. I don't have to like get in the zone to paint. I have to get in the zone to create music. When it comes to the live performances, it's just like, yo, just get on stage and perform. And with the amount of songs that I have to perform,
Yeah.
it's all about getting on stage and performing.
Yeah, but in that age of social media where visually, so on one, there's the ability to be able to film your art or film you creating art. And then on the other screen, even if you have a split screen, you're there performing on your guitar or piano songs. And then all of a sudden, somebody's filming the art that you're doing. And then in a way, you're combining the two. And I
Yep.
guess what happens is that visually, when somebody sees that, they then say, oh, actually, you know what? We're opening up an art gallery. It would be great to feature some of your stuff and then also do a performance there at the same time. But in a way, you almost have to see it. You have to create it for somebody to see it and say, actually, I can see this working. Let me try and connect the two and stuff like that. But
Exactly.
also, it lets fans know that actually you still sing and you're still a singer as well. So
Yeah.
if that's where the power of that Instagram and all the social media, if we do see you just doing a small melody of your stuff, but also as I said, it's almost like creating that music video where you are almost like a music video where you are performing and then it splits to the art that you're doing, and we're seeing the two worlds in a sort of a music video
Right.
of you.
That,
And then,
that's exactly what I've been creating. And it's funny because I'm gonna roll it all out soon, but it's like it's one of those things where I was um I was doing this interview with an artist friend of mine because he has like this new podcast where he interviews creative people of all sorts, right?
mm,
And we were doing this interview because that's the one thing. He's like my fine art mentor, but what we always discuss is the music because he's a musician first as well.
mm,
So we always discuss the music and how I can join the um, the two things together under the umbrella of what I do. Like so, like as far as my art, I go like for music is the Tony Rich Project.
Mm,
For art, it's the Tony Rich Creative, right?
mm,
And so like even on my business card, it says Tony Rich Creative Music Fine Art. So this project has been so cool for me because I'm joining, not joining two worlds together, but I'm just showing people that I do two different things. And here they are. And they can blend together because I've always been um, very, very instrumental in the visuals of my artwork for my albums.
mm,
Nobody done my artwork. No, I have my hands on. No, no, I want to do this. I want to put this here. How about that? No, let's use this photo. So when you're used to that, you know, it makes sense. Even down to like what I've been in. I'm gonna send you my website and some of my
mm.
artwork so you can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be good.
I'm infusing is lyrics and different images because I take photos. I'm a photographer as well, but the photography that I do, I incorporate into the art,
Mm,
and even down to like creating music that goes with the art. It's really really cool. I'm gonna let you hear some of that too. Matter of fact, I'm gonna send you some clips of artwork that I've done that has music embedded in the clip, and I post these sometimes just to like show people what I'm working on.
but it's music, but not accompanied with vocals.
Now, some of it has vocals, some of it's just instrumental.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that the more we see it, the more people say, "Oh, I
Yep.
think, yeah, he's still around, he's still singing," and it then starts to create, yeah, starts to create that sense of, oh, okay, you may get promoters and stuff calling up and saying, "Hey, why don't you come and play here and do things?" So they want to make sure that you're still, you're still performing, you still have
Yeah.
the sound and everything.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I mean, as I always wrap up and as I end, I always ask my guest, and it's been something I've started since 2020, is that, trying to see the different side of you. So if I used to say if you're stuck in an elevator, but in a way, if you had to kill time and you had the chance to watch your favorite movie, what movie are you requesting to watch?
My favorite movie,
Your all-time favorite movie, yeah.
Meet Joe Black.
Okay.
Meet Joe Black is what look, I have so you asked me the right wrong question because I am a serious movie buff. And
Yeah.
now with Netflix and Prime, you now I'm into the series, right?
Yeah.
But Meet Joe Black was one of the first DVDs I ever bought
Mm.
because that movie inspired me to write a song
Wow.
back then, but I didn't put it on an album until 2017. And that song was called Whisper of a Thrill.
Mm.
And when I first saw that movie, what you know what I loved about that movie? It's the storyline, but it's also the orchestration of music in the score is just so I just love it all, man. I love the imbalance of the level of the music versus the voices. They didn't do the best job in balancing that, so that when the music plays, it's loud, and then you have to turn it down. You have to turn it down when the music comes on. You have to turn it back up when people start talking. But I just love that movie. But I'll say that will be the one that I'll say now because I probably have about 100 movies.
Yeah, it was a very interesting film. I said the concept about death and about life lessons and about love and you know death coming to to taste this world, falls in love, and then
Yeah.
gives it wasn't and I was surprised because I remember interviewing Father MC. He was my first guest, and he says meet Joe Black, and he was talking about even the Jamaican lady when Brad Pitt speaks in Patois. And I said, yeah, I remember watching that. So I rewatched it and I thought, and if it comes on now, I will stop and finish it because it's like,
Oh my God, that is so good.
it is so good. It
It's
is
so
so,
good because it was like when Anthony Hopkins said when he was talking to his daughter because
mm,
she's gonna get married, and he says, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like I don't see nothing, not even a whisper, not even a
Mm,
thrill. I was like, oh, I just thought that was so cold the way he said it. But throughout that movie, it's all these different lines, these one-liners that are just like, it's like these statements of philosophy. Because when I watch movies for those one-liners.
mm,
Like the series that I just finished watching, the second season of is Outer Range with Josh Brolin. Amazing series, man. It's some twisted stuff, bro.
mm.
You'll be like, what? And Colin Farrell had one that I just watched. So yeah, that's what when I'm not doing music or art or like kicking it with my fam, I am watching a movie or some series.
Okay. Yeah, no,
It's
that's
nothing but a long movie.
yeah. No, that's a good mine is Schindler's List and Color Purple, and it's really the redemption elements of both films
Yeah,
that I appreciate, with Liam Neeson starting off looking for profit and then changes his whole philosophy as to life. And at the end, he's like thinking, look, I could have even done more if I had even thought about it. And they said, look, you did more than enough.
yeah,
And those types of things. And then Color Purple, where Danny Glover's sort of redemption where he just thinks,
yeah,
I can't just be this mean guy, and he finally posts the letters to gets the letters across to Celia, his sister, and they meet, and I think there's something about indirectly portraying human redemption that actually really touches me and stuff that we don't
yeah.
see a lot of.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Also, then when before they put the movie, you get to pick your all-time favorite song by any artist, by any over the years. Which one? What is your all-time favorite song?
I have I have a short list, but I'm gonna have to go. I, let me give it short thought. I need to like when I hear this song, when I hear this song, okay, I'm gonna go with this one right now. This song, when I hear it come on, I just be like, oh, it is Lenny Williams. I love you.
Mm.
Oh, oh man, I love that song. I don't care who sings it. I just love that song. It is just, man, it's a feel good record. And then what he's saying, and as a man, he's being, look, when a male artist lays his heart out and is vulnerable,
Mm.
it's always going to be a big record. I remember a girlfriend at the time was telling me, she says, do you know two of them? She said three of the most vulnerable songs by male artists of all time, or something like that. She said, and I said, who? She says, nobody knows. She said, because think about it. You said, I pretended. Like you were confessing that you were trying to act like it didn't bother you. I pretended I was glad you went away. And then Robin Thicke, Lost Without You. And it was another one. But for me, it's Lenny Williams, I love you.
Mm.
Because he's basically just like, I love you, girl. Like, no matter what, this is how I feel. And it's I love that record. And
Wow.
listen, the best performance I've ever seen of it outside from Lenny Williams is this girl. She lives in Atlanta and she could sing like nobody's business. But when she performs that song, she sings it with this, not the same passion as Lenny Williams. Nobody can sing it
Mm.
like him, but she did a really good job because when people cover songs, all I'm looking for is like, just don't destroy the integrity of the song. Like,
Yeah.
give it your soul. Like, put your soul on it for a minute where I get chills.
Mm.
Oh, that's what I like.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna listen to that again. My all-time
Yeah,
favorite is Michael Jackson's "The Lady in My Life," but I don't think I've seen or heard anyone cover it well, and so I it's because he got to a sense of vulnerability that that was really a place that I don't think he's been able to reach again. And so when somebody tries to cover it, it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's like
feel like they're trying. They understand where he was coming from when he was singing it.
right. It's like if you're not gonna understand what the song means, what it's about, don't mess with it. That's why I say, like, look, nobody knows it's been covered like 20 something times already. And the best covers that I've heard of it, the best cover I've heard of Nobody Knows thus far is this country artist named Rain Johnson, I think his last name is. It's a very recent one too.
Mm,
But because I've heard many people do that song, and I'm like, you don't have to oversing that song.
mm.
It's like a song with a great melody like that. Just sing it. It's like you don't have to do all that. Like I pretend. Like you don't have to do all that. Just sing the song. It's like you can damn near talk that song and it's gonna sound great. It's like, but
Yeah, I think
yeah,
you have to. Because if you think about how Michael is a shy, vulnerable person, and you don't really see talks much about relationships, so he's singing that song. You could see that
yeah.
he's coming from a place. When somebody, I think I've heard Maxwell and Neo and others try to sing it, and vocally they're good, but I can't connect with it. The passion that and the vulnerability that Michael displayed. Because if you're a confident singer, an artist, um. Michael doesn't perform that live because it's a space, the place where he doesn't reach. So yeah, so that's why it's hard. It's hard for me to just to enjoy anyone else singing it. But it's finally, so you've as a songwriter, as a producer, and you mentioned the ones that you always wanted to meet. If you had your five sort of pillars of producers that you'd admired over the years, who would make those five? If you have to
Five.
squeeze an extra
Okay,
one.
so all right. So if I have to have my starting five, like basically like I'm a producing coach, and this is my team, my starting team.
Yeah.
Prince,
Wow.
Teddy Riley, um, Prince, Teddy Riley, Quincy. Mm,
You got,
really, he doesn't really fall in the producer category like that. But so I said Prince,
you said Teddy
Teddy
and
Riley,
Quincy.
Quincy
Quincy.
Jones. Hold up. Oh man. Wait. Whoa. Dr. Dre,
Wow.
because Dr. Dre is a dope producer. He is.
Mm.
He is a seriously dope producer. And see, the last one I'm thinking about, I'm kind of toggling with it because he he's not really known to be a producer, but he is. I'm gonna say Lenny Kravitz.
Oh.
Here's the reason I say that. Because all of those producers can go in the studio with little to nothing and come out with something amazing.
Mm.
And they're all multi-instrumentalists. I like people that don't have a whole lot of names on their credits when they create stuff. Teddy can write a song 100% by himself. Everybody I named can write songs 100% by themselves.
Mm.
So, but I'm pretty sure there's some other ones that now if I had to, okay, check this. This
Honorable
will be great.
mentions. You can have your honorable mentions if you want some.
No. I'm gonna create the team that will go against them.
Okay.
Okay, you ready
Okay.
for it?
Okay.
This is the starting five that will go against the ones I just named.
Okay.
Okay, Tim and Bob,
Okay.
me, Donnell Jones.
Donnell.
Yeah. Donnell Jones. Because Donnell Jones, when we were both on LaFace, we were the only two that produced and wrote all our own stuff.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
but Donnell Jones and hold up, it's one more. Man, who was that? I need to add a beat guy. I'm gonna say I'll throw Timberland in there for beats. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll throw Timberland in for beats because we gotta have somebody to match up with Teddy. So that's why I'll throw him.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I did forget that you and Donnell were. I keep forgetting he was on LaFace because
I'm
he's
saying,
because he was with Eddie and on the Untouchables. He was in Atlanta, and and they were self-contained in a way. They didn't seem to need Babyface because he said he
right?
did meet up with Babyface as well when I spoke to him. So
Oh, because we were all on the East Coast.
yeah.
We didn't get a chance. See, all the Yap young people got a chance to work with Kenny, but we were all on the East Coast. Kenny wasn't on the East Coast at that time. You know, he's living in LA. So it's funny, man. It's like because what I know about the producers that I know, it's like one of the ways that me and Tim and Bob linked up is because we just admired each other's creativity so much.
Mm,
Still to this day, like we will um far as in our era, I know that when I name my top five, none of
mm.
those producers in my era, they were way before me. That's why I said, okay, the opposing team would be us, right? Because I I I would I would stack I would stack Tim up against anybody because he's just great at what he does and he's really serious about it.
Mm,
Like I have a lot of confidence in myself too. That's why I look at a lot of producers. I'll be like, man, I'll go up against anybody because if it boils down to, oh, you're gonna go in that room,
mm,
you can't sample nothing,
mm,
you can't take no vocalists, you can't take no extra singers, none of that.
mm,
Yeah, see how many people can step up to that challenge. That's a
mm,
different kind of challenge. Like I know I would not try to challenge Prince or Lenny Kravitz on that.
mm,
Because those jokers can go in there, they go in there with nothing and kick ass. You know
mm.
what I'm saying? Like those are the ones I just go like.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say this short story real quick. This is a funny Prince story because I had some pretty cool hangout moments with him. Right,
Mm,
so he had invited me to Memphis, Tennessee. He says, "Hey man, you should come up to Memphis and then we can jam afterwards." All right, cool. So I go up there. He says, "Yeah, I'm staying at the Peabody Hotel." It's all right, cool. Get to the Peabody Hotel in Memphis. I didn't know anything about it. I definitely didn't know about the ducks. So it's these marching of the ducks that go through the lobby, like actual ducks are just walking around. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, so I get to my room and Prince says, Billy calls me and says, "Hey man, boss man gonna call you in a minute." I said, "All right, cool." And Prince calls and he goes, "Hey, so you're here?" "Yep." He says, "So we have sound check coming up. You want to go?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Meet me at the elevator in 15 minutes." So, all right, cool. It's early as hell. He sounded like he just woke up. I'm thinking like, yo, he actually sleeps. So I get out into the lobby and it's three elevators. And I'm like, okay, which elevator? I don't know. I'm just standing in front of the middle one. I stand there. The door goes ding. Door opens. His security guard, Aaron, is standing there staring at me like he doesn't know me. I've met Aaron several times. He's looking at me like he doesn't know me. I'm like, and then Prince peeks from behind him like, "Hey." So I get on the elevator. So I get on the elevator. We hanging out. We go to sound check. Get back to the hotel. Go to the performance. Now after the performance, he goes. It's about 11 o'clock. He says to me, he says, "Okay, so we're gonna go out later and jam. We'll call you." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I fall asleep because it's about 1 o'clock in the morning. By this time, I'm fell asleep. Phone rings. It's like 2:30 a.m. Meet me at the elevator in 15 minutes. I'm like, looking at the time. I'm like, bro, it's sleepy time, right? So I get on the elevator. We head down. We get on the tour bus, heading over to this club. And while we sit on the tour bus, he says, "Hey, you know what? You should ask LA to let you off the label just for one album." I said, "Huh?" I said, "I don't know about that, dude." I said, You remember that fax you sent to him with that said free TLC? I don't think he ain't too fond of. I don't think he's gonna let me do that, right? So he says, no, no. He says, think about it. I write and produce and play instruments. You write and produce and play instruments. It'll be easy. We can do an album in no time. Let's just do a joint album together. I'll advance you 500K. We'll split everything 50-50. He says, ask him. Warner Brothers let me do it. That's when I did The Most Beautiful Girl in the World. And I was sitting there like this. That would be dope. But I knew that wasn't gonna happen. But he offered it to me. But I was signed to a label that wasn't gonna let that happen.
Oh, so you didn't even bother trying to ask LA?
No. Because LA was not feeling Prince at that time. Prince had sent him because TLC was going through their issues.
Oh, one he would.
Yeah, and Prince sent him a fax that said free TLC. And the last phone conversation I had with Prince was this. This was after I hung out with him maybe 6, 7 times. Last phone call was in '99. And he said, I called him, he answered the phone. He says, hey. I said, what's up, man? He says, yeah, I just got off the phone with Tony Braxton. I said, word? He said, yeah, she's not free. I said, okay. And he said, I don't talk to artists that are not free. So give me a call when you're free. Click. That was it. That was the last time I talked to him.
But even when you left your outlet label, he didn't connect. Even when you left LaFace.
He said, call me when you're free. The next time I heard from anybody in his clique was they was asking me if I was coming to the Raven to the year 2000 concert. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm just staying there. I'm spending time with my kids. So that was that.
Wow.
But it was funny, man. I'll tell you my funny Prince stories another time.
Yeah, goodness. But if LA had said, okay, only if we get 50% of it, would he have agreed?
Prince?
Yeah.
No. Because the whole idea was when Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers had said to him that he was washed up. So he says, okay, let me off the label for one single and I'll show you. And he did The Most Beautiful Girl in the World. And it became one of his biggest singles. And they didn't make time off of it. So.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
But at least I have the story.
Yeah, goodness. I mean, I guess there's the fact that people. But how did he connect with you then? How do you connect with Prince? I mean, was it because of nobody knows that he reached out to you? Or?
What it was this. He heard Jimmy Jam in an interview talking about me, where he said, you know, that someone said something about, what do you think of the Tony Rich project? He says, man, to me, it's like a fusion of Prince and Babyface. So with Prince in that time, when he would hear people talking about an artist, he wanted to find out for himself.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about like, oh, I want to meet Prince. No. If people are talking about you enough, he's going to want to meet you. And he's going to bring you to Paisley Park. He's going to get you on stage to see if you can really play instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what he did. I got there. He called me up on stage. And we jammed.
What are you playing, guitar or keyboards?
No, I play keyboards, and then he put on the strap on the keyboard.
Okay.
And he wanted to go back and forth. And I'm like, not a chance. And then we come off stage, high-fiving me. He's like, yeah, man, you funky, man. All right, Detroit, all right. But it was cool, man. It was a really cool, fun time. And then after that, he would periodically reach out to me and say, hey, I'm gonna be in Atlanta, or I'm gonna be here. Let's meet up. And we would meet up, and it would be like he would have a show, and I would go to the show, and then we would hang at the after party and sit on the rooftop, talk shit about veganism and semantics and stuff like that. Yeah, it was cool. And the cool thing about it was, what was really cool about him was that he was not as peculiar or weird as people may think. Talk to him, it's just like talking to a regular dude. It's just that you talk to a regular dude with full makeup on and glitter on his face. I had his mascara. That's it. But other than that, I tell you what, he was not someone I would leave my girlfriend with.
Yeah, it's funny
Dressed
because
just like that.
Chucky's book is says the same thing that he says, yeah, could you come and jam with the band? So he wanted to test him out, and I think this is when he had done the Ribbon Nation stuff. So he
Yeah,
wanted to see, well, how good are you and stuff, and he's like,
yeah.
yeah. So okay, it's
That's
okay.
the theme.
Okay. But it's
Yes.
good that he does keep an eye out and reach. I think Michael used to do that with vocalists, like Boys to Men and people. He felt that actually, let me tap into to recognize you as well. So it's good to see that these guys knew who they kept an eye out and they can bring you into their camp and stuff. It's a
Yeah.
pity you didn't get free enough to do that.
Oh, right.
That would have been.
That would have been super dope. But the
Oh,
moments were
yeah. Oh man. So it's been great doing this second one. Um and but as I said, if we do know about your exhibitions,
yeah,
your stuff, so it'd be great to be able to let people be able to visit that while I put this out.
yeah,
But and then I guess eventually if you do let us see and hear you sing, before you go on shows. I guess that does help. That helps bring you back in
yeah,
in the conscious of people. Like, okay, Tony's still out there, he's still singing and stuff. So that would be
yeah,
helpful to be able to see as well.
yeah.
Yes, but well, I appreciate it. Goodness, it is 1:30 in the morning here, and
Oh, wait a minute. How long did we go?
I think
Like a
it's
few
about three and a
hours?
half, three,
Yeah. Okay.
12, what, two, yeah, 3.5 hours. So,
All right. Well,
yeah, yeah, but that's definitely been great, and yeah, I think over the next couple of weeks, I'll go back and edit, and could I put them out in segments because it what it does, it just means that it actually generates the buzz. If you just, I
yeah,
think it's almost like releasing an album. If you put out a single, then you put out another single, then you generate, and then you can put out the album, and that's just helps. So I
the
know over
shorts
the
are easier to watch too. You know,
yeah, it definitely
it's
is.
like
Yeah,
yeah, it's just easier to. It's like you can because I always watch yours, and I even do that with a lot of my favorite podcasts. Like I will eventually go and watch from start to finish, but for the most part, I always catch those shorts. It'll be like 5 minutes, and
yeah,
it's really really cool because then I'm like, then I start to piece them together. So it's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Yeah. So what happens is, cause I think I interviewed Tim last Saturday, and it was like this 3.5 hours. Um, but I know but Bob, I interviewed him last, I think in December. And what
Mhm.
happens is that I tend to need a couple of weeks away from it so then I can watch it and digest. Because when you get all this information, it's so good. And I'd like, okay, I need a week or two just
Yeah,
to digest from it. And then when I'm rewatching it to put the little segments together, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. And go, yeah. So that would definitely be that definitely be the case and stuff. But as I said, as I said, I can't wait to be able to see that you're up singing and stuff like that because I think, that it'll be good for people to see after this and stuff that you actually are
yeah,
are performing and combining your visual arts as well.
yeah. I'll send you some materials too to check out what I'm doing.
Yeah, that'll definitely be great. But
Music and art.
yeah,
I'll give you a peep in on that.
that'll be great. But if you do send me the where your website is and stuff. So when I'm putting it in the description, I'm able to
Mhm.
be able to link that so people can check that out directly as well.
Okay, I'll do
Yes.
that.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Tony. And
Right.
yeah. Well, but I'll
Wait,
definitely be in touch.
how do you pronounce your name properly?
Namdi.
Namdi.
Yes.
So the first N is silent.
In most ways, I tell people it's like saying Aaron.
Mm.
So Namdi.
Right. Got you.
Yeah, I think if my parents were pronouncing it, they overemphasize the first N. But generally, I don't do that. My kids, we don't do it. Just Namdi. So yeah,
Okay.
But
Okay.
it can be, it can, yeah. If I just kept, I think if I left one N out, it'd probably be easier to just to pronounce it and stuff. Yeah.
Hey, you know what's funny? It's like Michael Bolton, right? When I was working with him, he told me this story. He said, "My last name is not actually Bolton." I was like, "Really?" I said, "What is it?" He says, "Balatin."
Oh,
His last name is Balatin. It's German, but what it
ah,
is that he said back in the day, back in the early '80s, when he would be making these collect calls from he didn't have money to make phone calls to the payphone, and he would say they would say your name. He'd say Michael Balatin, and the operator would just say Michael Bolton. That's why you
oh, wow.
because it's sort of like this, like my 12-year-old son's name is Nine, Nine, like the number. But when people look at it, they don't pronounce it as nine at first. They'd be like, Nene.
Oh,
This woman said to my son one time, she says, "Hey, sweetie, what's your name?" He said, Nine. She says, "No, not your age, your name." He says, Nine, Nine, like the number. And he was probably 5 years old at that time.
wow.
I always wonder when I see spellings of names because I don't like to assume how it's
Mm,
pronounced. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, somebody might say, was there a reason for the number nine as a name? That does.
Yeah, at the time I was working on an album that I was going to name Nine Lives, and then I was toying with it being called Nine, but then there was a movie called Nine, and then because his mom was like, "Hey, you can name him," because I have 4 kids and he's the only one that I named, and so I was just like, so I was just thinking, and I was studying the number nine a lot at that time because whenever I
Okay.
come up with an album title, I go into deep study about what the title name is. And then a good friend of mine called me and was like, "Yo, bro, you think of a name yet?" And I said, Nine. And he said, "Yo, man, that's dope." So his response to it was like, I was like, "Really?" So then I called my brother and I said, "Joe, I came up with a name for the baby." He said, "What's that?" I said, Nine. He said, "Yo, that's dope." And then I told his mom and she was like, "I love it." So I was like, "Okay, there it is."
On reflection, 12 years later, what are your thoughts?
He's a nine. I can't imagine his name being anything else. And
Mm,
it's funny because it's almost surreal sometimes when I'm calling his name because and then to hear other people saying, like when I drop off at school, to people outside like, "Hey nine, good morning, have a good day." And it's like I said, "Son, you have a very good name. You don't even need a middle name for that." Good conversation piece for you, but yeah, he lives up to his name.
yeah.
He's probably
Yeah.
going to play 9 instruments or something like that. Something weird.
Hey, yeah, yeah. I guess, yeah, what does nine represent? I used to be into numbers like 12 and 7 and 3. Um, but I've not a
Nine is like
10.
the number of completion, right? It's when you think about it, there's only so you go from zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then you go back to zero, but with a one. 10,
Mm,
11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Then you go a two and a zero, and then you go keep going, right? And then
mm,
there's this thing about the number nine in numerology and in religions is like one of the most common and most profound numbers because also when you look at the spiral, it looks like a number nine. It's like that thing of the only way out is in sometimes. And nine also represents the ending of a cycle, the beginning of a new. So
mm.
most times when they deal with certain things in life, it's like life cycles, and there's typically 9 years.
Oh,
So
the
it's a lot,
9 months, 9 months
a lot.
pregnancy.
Exactly, it's a lot. 9 and 18 holes of golf. And if you take, you know, 81, 81 and 18, both are going to equal nine. 45 and 54, 36, 72. And so it's like, and even down to like, get this, the number, oh, I have it right here, but my Grammy number is actually 3969. That's the
Okay.
number. That's the number of my Grammy. So out of all the Grammys that have been handed out, mine is number 3,969.
Okay. Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, okay.
They number them all, and it's on the bottom. It's a number, right? It's engraved on the bottom. I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Every
No, as I said, it's as I think it's important when you are, giving a name to a child and researching it, not like, oh, I like
yeah,
Solomon, let me just call it Solomon, but
yeah,
understand, okay, what is there behind the name that you like? Wisdom. So when you're calling, are you thinking that this child is going to be wise beyond their age? They're going to make the right decisions. So then as you're calling it, you're almost in a way speaking that type of, speaking the power and the
yeah,
thoughts and knowledge about them.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, but he can't shorten his name, can he? He can't, like Andrew
Make
could be
it
called
long.
Andy and stuff like that. There's nothing he can't, no one can.
I call him Niner sometimes.
Oh,
He loves it. And but I call him. I have several nicknames for him. But yeah, you're right. You can't shorten it. What is it going to be? N?
yeah, yeah. See, yeah. So that's yeah. So even Antonio's Tony's.
Yeah,
William can be Bill. It can be Will.
right.
Yeah, yes. Oh
So
goodness.
people just gonna have to call him by his name.
Yeah,
Amen.
that's yeah. I mean, like myself, mine. There is no shorting, and actually, I think. When I moved to, it was when I moved to the States to go to college that
Yeah,
I kept the name. I just didn't try and get my middle name. I just used the name, and it then meant that actually people were willing to learn it, and once they
exactly.
did, it became that's the name. We're not going to try and change it. We're not going to try and find something easier and stuff.
Look,
Yeah.
I pronounced it. I pronounced it right the first time I said it. But I was talking with my wife, and I was like, I said, "How do you think his name is pronounced?" And I think he said Nnamdi, and I was
Th-
like,
That's actually correct.
"It is."
Because it's Igbo, so it's a Nigerian name. So
Yeah,
it does so I told you if my mum or parents were pronouncing it, they'll say Nnamdi. So they will put an emphasis on
Nnamdi,
the
right.
yeah. But I don't pronounce it that way because yeah, but that would be how say somebody from an Igbo person from Nigeria would
Yeah.
pronounce it. They would go Nnamdi. So your wife got it
You know
right.
what's interesting? You know what's interesting about that is there was so there was a friend of mine who had a cousin. No, it was my two oldest children's mother, her cousin. His name is Inkosani, right? But what it is her and all her cousins, they all have African names. Like there's Thais, there's Inkosani, there's what's the other one? B. Now, but there was another one that who was it? Jay. Right. So it's a guy who he used to be an accountant that I used to do some work with. His name was Tola Olusegun.
You're Nigerian, Yoruba, yeah.
But his name he would go by was Jay, right? But here's the funny thing about names, right? So his wife at the time, her name was Deborah, and I remember at some point, but she used to pronounce the last name totally different. She would pronounce it Oreshagon.
Mm.
I'm like, that don't sound right. Because I know how he said it. He says Oreshagon. So I'm like, okay. And that's how I understood. Like at that point, then I could look at a name and I could tell if a person was Nigerian or not because I understood how the lettering was based upon like different tribes, right?
Yeah,
So, so then it's funny you say that. It's like, yo, if you just spell your name as is, they have no choice but to learn it as that, as what it is.
yeah.
Because what's the actor? A good friend of mine, Nigerian, Benga Akanagbe, the actor.
Okay.
And it's another actor that his name is David. I can't get his
Oh, the guy
last name.
that did Selma.
How do you pronounce his
Oh,
last name?
Oh yeah, no, I may have
I
to.
get twisted every time.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, oh yellow. I can't get it. Oh yellow
yeah,
wing.
it could
Something
be.
like that.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, I remember. Yes, but yeah, yeah, David. David. If I see. No, I couldn't even get it up there. Yeah, but even Chike or J4, who,
Yes.
yeah. So he's also Igbo. So they kept their names. They're like, we're not going to try and change it differently because if even if it's hard for you to pronounce, at least it makes me distinctive and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Whatever the name is, they got a people. I always say that, like, yo, I'm not gonna change my name to make it easier for you to pronounce it. Pronounce it properly. I used to date a girl. She was Bengali, and her name was okay. It was spelled Tropa, but pronounced Thropa.
Mm,
Her last name was Rashid,
mm,
and it was interesting because both her mother and father from India, but she was born when she was born. They were living in Saudi Arabia, but she introduces herself to people as Tanya because nobody looks at the name and says Tropa. They will
mm,
call her Tropa, right? Whereas like my ex-wife had a son, has a son named Taiputty, right? Because Taiputty's father is Maori, right? So Taiputty is spelled Taipari.
mm.
So when he would go to school, I said, dude, I said, why are you letting these kids call you Taipari? He says, I just don't feel like explaining it to him. Because they would never look at that and say Ty Putty.
Mm.
When he told me, I was like, oh, so I would call him Putty for short.
Yeah, it is. It is I mean, I'm surprised your wife got it right. To how it would be called if we were back in Nigeria. Most people would pronounce it that way. In fact, when I hear somebody pronounce it that way, I think, "How do you know me?" And I say that's almost like, yeah, it's like, "Oh, how do you know me?" Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's interesting that she did it that way. Yeah, but I tell
yeah.
people it's just like Aaron. Do you pronounce A Aaron? No. So and
No,
so.
yeah.
And that's
All
how I got away with it. Oh, goodness. Anyway, well, Teddy, it's been great, but yeah, we'll still keep in touch and
Yeah, for sure.
as it's going out and stuff.
All right, man.
Okay,
Take it easy,
take it
brother.
easy. All right.
All right.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that category.
Age and somewhere in between.
Us for even loving us, on which I did miss you.
What was it like growing up?
She's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No. Okay, you okay?
They don't understand what Jonas boys do in all spirits.
Play it.
And all these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that category.
Age and somewhere in between.
Us for even loving us, on which I did miss you.
What was it like growing up?
She's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No. Okay, you okay?
They don't understand what Jonas boys do in all spirits.
Play it.
And all these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.